Oh, welcome Internet and everybody to the game, brought to you by Dungeon Studios, one of the worst run podcasts on the interwebs, because you get us idiots doing it for you. How is everyone tonight? I'm your host, Grom. Thank you for joining us. Joined, as always, by the inscrutable and a few quarts low, Dr.Pletorius. How you doing today, buddy? Well, lucky for you, I talk a shit ton, and no one listens to us anyways, except for all of you wonderful people that have joined us, have begun to follow the page, and are checking us out. So I make jokes about things. None of them are very good, but I do appreciate everyone that is here. So, Doc, before we get into anything really important, let's do the most important thing. Let's do the shameless plugs. I'm going to run through my whole list here. I updated this today. So, be sure you're checking us out. We have our website, dungeonstudios.co, where you can find adventures, content, the Enron Chronicle, and a bunch of other goodies. You can check us out on our Patreon. Support the studio, support the show, support us indie nerds making things beneath the boot of the tyrant that is Wizards of the Hasbro. Join us on our Discord. We're always looking for friends, playtesters, and contributors. So, a couple of current project things. The Kickstarter, fully funded. Thank you, everyone who helped us out. I made a plea last week because some psychopath left us at an odd number. I checked the Kickstarter the next day, and somebody had brought us up to a nice, smooth, even number with no ones in it. I appreciate that. Whoever you are my hero. It was very cool. Anyways, though, we do want to make a run at unlocking our last few stretch goals. So please, we have 6 days left in the Kickstarter. You got some loose change, rob your grandmother, whatever you got to do. Why don't you go ahead and hook us up? We appreciate it. It does support everything that we do. And as I said, as we move into the new regime under the Empire, clearly supporting the rebellion will be the most important thing that you can do. So, back our projects, back the studio, back our content or our current and future projects. Remember that for small studios, the success of projects like our current Kickstarter are crucial. Not only will it help us guide what choices we make and what products to bring you next, but it also lets us know that we're doing good, doing bad, and we can keep striving to bring in more dollars to improve our stuff and make you guys happier. So, I think I'm officially okay to talk about our future project. If not, I'm going to get yelled at, but that's okay. Our next project in the pipeline is Fables of the Forgotten. It is a series of stories where you, the guest, can listen in to the final tale of a doomed or dying soul and learn what their fate will be. The series, set within the world of Enron, provides a glimpse into that world, its lore and people. We hope you will like it. Now, as content from us, it will serve a few roles. One, it can entertain you, and it can entertain you. Sorry. 2, it can inspire you. You can hear the stories that we share on the podcast and use them, steal them shamelessly like I do, to build content. Yeah, it's definitely a different format than people are used to. It's a good way you can also kind of immerse yourself in the world of Enron. You learn about its people, places, its gods. You can hear stories and histories unfold. Brought to you, as Dr.Pletorius had said, by our newly acquired stable of voice actors. You guys are wonderful. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to whatever we're going to create next. But I also, our writers and creators who have come from the gaming community. I saw a post on Facebook and got hooked up with all this madness, and I'm stuck here now. They won't let me leave. So we hope you will enjoy it. And actually, Doc, since you mentioned it, I realize I am old as shit, as I might have mentioned. So I'm at the point now where a lot of my references and things that I talk about don't mean anything to the people I'm talking to because they don't get the reference. I describe the show to somebody as it's a mixture of a radio drama or teleplay and Tales from the Crypt. That's one of the things that we had talked about is kind of a style. I realize that most of the people on the planet right now have never seen or heard either one of those things. At least not by the standard gaming demographic. So, I grew up on those though. Listening to radio drama stuff. I still to this day I like listening to. There are some things I prefer to listen to than watch, like sporting events, which All right, well, I guess we're gonna have to just start everything over again. Doc, how you doing today?
Doing all right.
Oh, this is the universe correcting for the fact that last week we didn't really screw very much up. So this week we decided to cock it up ahead of time at 150%. So wonderful. Well, I'm not going to go through all the shameless plug in the reads again. Doc, a little worn down from a long vacation. I'm happy to have you here. I'm sorry I cut off the first 5 minutes of you talking.
No, that's okay. Are we back on?
Yeah, no, we're good. No, we're good. The problem was in all of my fiddling about today trying to fix an issue. Apparently, I turned your feed when I re-enabled your feed. It was on monitor only, so I could hear you, but it wasn't outputting anything.
Gotcha. I tell you, my microphone
stellar.
looks much better now. It's responding much better now. Do we hear it from the engineer, Josh? Am I okay now?
Yeah, Josh, you hear him? I can hear you. I know we're good.
All right. Thank you.
Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Well, I apologize. I do like to talk a lot, so thankfully everyone got just to hear extra bits of me. So, Doc,
Okay.
yeah, that's wonderful. Well, moving right along with
plugs, right?
Yeah, I just finished the plugs. Talking about the studio, I was quiet for a little bit while you weren't saying anything. So, give me your 30 seconds on our current projects going on right now. What do you think about the Kickstarter?
The thing we talk about plugs, definitely get to our Facebook page for Dungeon Studios and give us a follow. We hit 500 this week and we're still climbing. We really need you to jump there and help us out. It'd be a big help for us. Gets us moving, gets us picked up. Same thing if you listen to us on Spotify or anywhere. Those follow and like buttons really help us out. And we say, hey, check us out. We say the game, and then someone says, I can't find it. That's because not enough people had said follow yet or like yet. So keep doing that. Make your comments. Let's break those algorithms. That's really, I love doing that stuff. When the humans can break the programming, that's my favorite thing in the world.
I realize I've officially reached the point where I have too many screens going at once. And that's why I missed Josh was being polite and sending me the note that I screwed the stream up right to start, as opposed to just yelling in my ear. So I actually missed that it was screwed up. I didn't have my window tiled. I apologize. I got that fixed now, so I can see when I get sent messages. And like I did last week, I can try to keep tabs on the recording room and actually see if people are sending us information on the show. We were doing that last time. Some people in our Discord server, check that out. Please join if you're not already there. But check it out. If you are on our Discord server and you are listening to us, please hop into the game chat. I think it's open for everybody. That way I've only got to watch one window and we can figure out what's going on. So I'm going to go back to the game chat. Hopefully I don't miss anything from anyone. Looks good to me so far. All right. Moving right along now that I tanked the entire first half of the show. Let's get right into shit I forgot. Clearly the first thing is I forgot that I have a co-host and to turn his microphone on. So that's the start of my day today. But no, I actually had a couple of thoughts from last week that I wanted to get into. Now, Doc, since I cut you off, I will let you go first. Anything you wanted to bring up from our last conversation?
Well, we were talking about immersion in D&D, and we talked about so much last week. The one thing we did not bring up that I wanted to make sure I brought up was those guys out there doing the models, the scale models, and setting up the battle maps, like the castles with the figures. And
that would be me.
That's my buddy Greg. His brother runs a whole campaign where they use mini cameras as well, kind of explore the terrain. Yeah, they explore the terrain from, character point of view. That's really, really cool immersion stuff that I would love to get involved with. Again, with my disability, I'm not able to. But I would love to even just watch a game where someone has set up like a full miniature setup and the camera's moving.
Well, what's funny is I have been kicking around ideas for a live play because, as I told everybody before,
that's what I'm thinking too.
I don't
with a live play.
I don't personally think I'm interesting enough as a DM to really be a hit on the internet. But I like the idea of doing it. My goal was to, like I said, to do the worst run live stream on the internet with zero production value. But I like to have cool shit like that. And I've been working on ideas with a couple of friends on how to do the cameras so that you can have the mini eye view displayed to the people watching the stream.
Yeah, that would be so excellent. I would really
now that why we're talking about it, I just hit upon an idea that might work But I'm one of those people that does all that miniature terrain stuff. Someday when we figure out cameras and whatnot, I will be more than happy to show stuff online. But yeah, I got into that hobby a long time ago.
Now there was a secret. There was a secret that I found this year on Facebook. Do you ever go to the pet store to buy your terrain?
No, I custom make just about everything.
Oh, see, someone had mentioned to go to the pet store and go to the aquarium section. They have all kinds of great things to use.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. So my shit that I forgot. If three things. One, it was the holidays here in the States. So happy holidays to everybody. If you celebrate, awesome. I hope you had a good one. If you don't celebrate, I hope you got a couple of free days off to do nothing. Whatever works for you. But I was thinking about the immersion piece of this too, and I had two things I wanted to run through. One was props and bits. It's actually in my notes. So yeah, same thing. So this is the thing. So I got into that a long time ago because I came over and I'm a competitive gamer. I like to have all that shit because it matters. I like the tactical combat. I like that little chess match, and then I happened to get
the chess match part of it.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely.
But I got into doing painting and modeling years ago, and it became kind of my downtime. So I could engage in the hobby in a way that was, relaxing or fun. It was just something different,
right.
To do it. It's kind of like I was talking to our producer about. Video games, right? I play Civilization by myself. I don't. That's how I relax. I sit down.
I did too. I admitted that also. I had to.
But here was my point that I wanted to go over, though. There are so many things you can do to improve the production quality of your game that are accessible, free, and may take a little bit of effort to learn. But there's skills that will translate. I'm going to run through a couple of these things. So first of all, we talked about art before and whatnot. So you can get on and use one of the AI bots to create art for your game to show to your players. You can web source, i.e. steal art off the internet, kind of like the AI bots already do. Don't do that and sell it, though. That's wrong. But a big thing we talked about...
And even if you do it, man, give credit to the people that did the art, please.
Yes.
Please,
but one of the big things we talked about with immersion was how the phones can be a distraction, but like a lot of things, they're one of the most powerful tools that you have. So here's the thing. You can pull this artwork, have it on your phone. You don't have to print it out if you don't have a printer. That's a barrier for some people, but everyone's got a phone, right? So you can text or share images in a group for your game, things coming up, things that haven't happened yet. You could share the maps with people for combat so they can kind of visualize it if you don't have the stuff to put on your tabletop. Hell, you can even use your phones as a miniature. What better way to get them out of people's hands is to have them pull up a picture of their character and put that shit on your table, grab a couple of 70-cent rulers, and have a battle that way. That's how you do
it's funny you say that. I didn't have D&D. What do we play this week with the holidays? But I had set up a House of Lament from Curse of Strahd, Ravenloft stuff. I had set that up on Facebook with each level of the house because it's such a different type of adventure, not a dungeon crawl where people could go wherever they wanted to go. So people could actually go to the fourth level and have a discussion with each other in Facebook on the fourth floor. And I could talk to them about what they saw. It was kind of a neat way to play it out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I was going to say that was another one of mine, immersion for D&D. You can find Facebook groups, Discord groups for anything you're looking for maps, for storylines, for people that give you advice. So really, if you want to immerse yourself in that aspect of the game too, I think that's how I ended up here. I said, test playing a year ago for Dungeon Studios, and now here I am co-hosting with the Grom, even though I kept my switched off.
Well,
man, that's a bummer tonight, man. I can't believe you did that to me.
I gotta keep it in your place. I don't want you getting ahead of yourself. But yeah, so like I said, you use your miniature, your phone for that, something at the table. But like Doc was saying, the pet store or the dollar store, some of the coolest things that I've seen. In there, you can get little wooden discs, a cheap paper punch, make your own little props like pogs. You can cut out. I just did this in my Shadowrun test in the Shadowrun teaching game that we were doing because I don't have miniatures printed out for it. I didn't have the time to go through and even print paper minis. But you can just take paper, cut it into little tents, and write on there what it is. At least you have something, right? You can do that. But just some software and things you can get. GIMP is a free Photoshop style program. You can get that, and with a little bit of work, you can figure out how to compile images to make stuff for your game, to build maps. It's a little bit of time on the DM's part, but it costs nothing.
Out there. Yeah, there's so much stuff out.
You want to enhance the immersion with music. We had on Splintered Reality, friends of the show a while back, nerds and metal and a metal band. I love those guys. But if you want to have music in your game, you know what? You can get Audacity. It's free software on the internet, and you can put together a soundtrack for your game. We have Mixer, I think, is a free soundboard app that our producer hooked me up with, that I've been able to use for some things in my game. So these tools are out there. They're free or cheap. Get into it. Some of the coolest things I've ever done, I put together myself with GIMP for free.
And your game becomes much, much more immersive for your players, and that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, and now the downside of that though is a little bit of work for the DM, which we've talked about the barriers to running games, but I'm going to tell you, if you can make the time for it, it makes the experience better for everybody. And never underestimate the benefit of learning something for a nerdy reason. I will tell you right now, my professional career has been helped out because, not because I went to college, but because I learned how to do Excel at a high level so I could easily manage my fantasy football leagues that started 22 years ago. That shit has paid off for me in ways I never would have imagined.
Yeah, that's true. So, I found the same thing with my digital art when I first got sick, and it's paid off in new and different ways for me as well.
Yeah.
So that's very, very true.
Yeah, I got a lot of bad jokes about things your parents told you when you were younger, but this is not a joke. My old man always said, he goes, never give up a chance to learn something because you never know when you can use it to make money. So it's a good tip. All right, my second thing really quick is logic. I talked about this a little bit during last week, but there was a point I wanted to make, and I remember a tip I had learned about writing from somebody. I want to kind of spin this really quick. And I'm learning this now, writing modules and doing play tests and doing revisions. Write it out and read it aloud to yourself. That's one of the best ways you can self-check for things, mistakes, how things sound, how things flow. And this includes, to help the logic of your game, write out a synopsis of what the plot is or the scene, a couple sentences, and read it aloud, right? Because in your head it sounds amazing because you know all the little things about it or what you want it to be, right? But when you put it on paper and then you read it, then it's out there in the world, and you will hear if it sounds wrong. Or the tip I got from a YouTube channel about writing was any sentence that you finish and then can say, and then the zombies ate their brains. If that works in the sentence, then your sentence isn't a good sentence. Because it doesn't convey something clearly, because you could add the zombies ate their brains. The same thing happens with this. For the logic part of it, write it down. We were just talking about one of our modules that we were working on, and it got me thinking about this. Write out your ending scene for the story you're doing. So, they race to the top of the tower and then whatever, right? And if when you read what happens to end your module, you can say you can read that and go, and then a dinosaur ate them, right? And it doesn't sound wrong, then you probably have a logical flaw. Because if you did it, if you're doing it to a good degree where it's going to hold up the immersion of your game, the verisimilitude of your story, you should read it, and there shouldn't really be an option on what happens. That there should be a thing that makes sense. I'm trying to think of a good example of this.
It's like a cause and effect, really.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're talking about, too. It's a cause and effect. It can't just be this random chance thing. And it's great because if it sounds wrong at the end, with that little addition of the zombies ate their brains or whatever, it's a good rule.
Yeah.
It's a good
rule. So let's steal from Star Wars, my favorite thing ever, right? So think about the end of that movie, the end of the first Star Wars movie from the 70s, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about. Luke flies down the Death Star trench. The Millennium Falcon shows up, blasts Vader out of the trench. Luke takes the shot. The torpedoes go in, and the Death Star explodes. Right?
Woohoo! We're
Right.
home.
So here's the thing. That's exactly if you read that and I go, okay, if you could think of something else in that synopsis that would make the ending make sense, then your ending doesn't, maybe isn't finished yet. But if you try to change that and go, and then the Wookiee, there's nothing that goes there.
No,
It just makes sense.
Absolutely.
That's how you know you're at the good spot. So like I said, if you write it out and you read it and you go, well, maybe it could end like this and it sounds plausible, then you have a logic gap to work out and fix.
The only thing they wrote there was, and Darth Vader's TIE fighter gets knocked.
Well, I'm not saying you can't add some bullshit because it does involve space wizards, so things happen.
All right. Well, and it's comic book. You got to have the cliffhanger. I mean, what would it be?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But then again, like I said, the just to finish that point.
No, it's a great point. It's a great point.
Yeah. If you have something if you have an event that's going to happen and you read it out loud and it sounds weird when you read it out loud, it's probably going to be weird to your players and they're going to go, "What the fuck?"
Mm-hmm.
No. Not that you can't have times, obviously, where some shit happens that's not expected. Because, again, it's a game with magic, and magic breaks the rules. So, well, with that bit of shit I forgot out of the way, we don't have much in the week of games. I've been running playtests, though. You didn't get to do anything? You just were on vacation mode?
I did. I had a playtest on Thursday night. We finished running our Briny Botel Murder Mystery. And I have to tell you again, I was very excited when I talked about it last week, and I was excited about it for the conclusion. Murder mysteries themselves are very different than dungeon crawls, and I'm just going to say that. I want to say that our writer, AJ, knocked it out of the park. He's written a really good murder mystery. Again, the feedback from the players, just how stumped they were and where it could go and how crazy the whole thing gets and the vibe it gave off is what we were looking for, so that was great. But I am looking forward to our Misty Towers playtest finishes this week too, and that's very excited about that.
Very nice.
And then I got to listen into your playtest this week was outstanding, but I'll let you talk about that.
It went well, and I love the illusion that I got my shit together. That's always fun. Like it's so tight. I'm like, yeah, I totally wrote it that way. You guys have no idea. But it's that playtest. It's one of the reasons why I had thought about the shit that I forgot being the game logic thing. Mostly because going through it, I realized that parts I had thought I had written down to read to players, I didn't, and as soon as I got there, I'm like, yes, you go in this room, and in my mind, I know exactly what the description is. I know what's going on in the room. I got to the written part of it, and I'm like, fuck, I didn't write that down.
Yeah.
So if I had given this away to some poor DM to run, they would have not had that information. So in my own notes, and this is why I had that point. If I had come across that while I was running it live, and it had been something I did for my home game where it was my first draft of it, I would have been like, fuck, I got to make this shit up now. Which is okay if it's your game, but it's just like I said that. So, but yeah, it went well, and I'm almost disturbed because I'm not getting any negative feedback, which I have a hard time with. But
I think you've had you did a lot of re-editing already. I mean, you're at a certain point at it now where I think you're more at fine tuning.
Yeah, I took a chainsaw to it, so that's...
Yeah, so you're more at a fine-tuning point. I'm just very excited with it, too, because it really has to feel, if I can say this, I'm sorry, old school S3, right?
Yep.
Escape from Barrier Peaks. But the problem with Barrier Peaks was there was kind of too much left. It was just sort of like a random happenstance that this big disc thing is sitting in the mountains, and there's like no function again.
Yeah, it doesn't have that game logic to it.
Yeah, no game logic to it. So, and that's really nice seeing that game logic to it. And your test players, and this is the one thing I wanted to put out there, we're always looking for test players. If you're thinking about being, or you're on the fence about being a test player, these test players kicked some really good, they were awesome test players because they explore those different nooks and crannies that you realize you needed those written things for. Like, let's open this door, or let's try this here. I had someone try Speak with Dead at the scene of the murder mystery. So it was kind of exciting to test play that.
What'd you do there?
Well, again, as written, that person is overtaken by someone in their room and doesn't see anything. Yep. And rules as written, they can only tell you what they know.
Right.
So it was a lot of fun with them saying, "I don't know what happened. Somebody jumped me from behind. I don't know."
That's one of those things.
Something hit me in the neck. Oh, it hurt so freaking bad. It was great.
Yeah. What's great is I got
fun to play.
Cool. I got to drop one of my favorite mechanics on the play test. Something. Speaking of phones being a benefit, they were discussing something. I said, "Okay, guys. Well, that's what it was. They were trying to get information from a survivor who they revivified. I forgot. I got to hit all the syllables, otherwise you can't understand what I'm saying. But they decided to revivify one of the people that they blew up with a fireball, totally on accident. I'm not evil at all, and they wanted to get answers to it. And I explained, I'm like, well, the person's messed up, and hit points aside, this is just a common person who got stabbed to death, almost was clinging to life. Then you blew them up with a fireball, and then you revivified them. They're kind of in shock. But I will say this: I will give you a couple of questions before they kind of lose it, and you won't be able to wake them up or heal them to get any more information. So, what do you want to ask? And they started going back and forth. I said, okay, well, here's the thing. While you're discussing this, they're trying to hold on to consciousness. So I'm going to set a timer. I'm not going to tell you how it's for, but when it beeps, you better have questions. Go. And then just the immediate get up and get your shit together that happened right there is they also go, well, you got to figure this out. I'm like, I love that. It's such a good thing to do.
It's funny. That's a teaching trick. Really. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I actually broke into using Justin Timberlake and Madonna's 4 Minutes became my theme song in my classroom. And man, those kids got a lot done in 4 minutes in my class.
That is not a song I would have expected you used for a teaching moment. But
why? If you use a clean version, you're good to go.
Oh.
It works really well.
Fair enough. All right. Well, yeah, but no. Playtest went well. There was some good feedback on some of the stuff. So at the very least, to some degree, in my writing of the module, I have practiced what I've preached on the show. So I feel good about that. But one thing that doesn't feel good is Doc, worn down from his holidays. I think it's time for him to take a visit to the doctor's office.
Oh,
what do you got for us?
I have some. Well, I said I was going to return to the menorah, because it was just too deep. So we're going to go right back there.
Okay.
And I think the thing that's really cool about this, we go back to Alexander the Great. And I don't mean to, again, this is not my culture. So if I get anything wrong, I apologize.
Don't worry, I'm here to correct you when you do.
All right, cool. So you have Alexander the Great takes over, most of the area, the Mediterranean, Jerusalem being there, and they have their temple of the one God. And the cool thing that they love, the Jews love about Alexander is when he conquers, he says, hey, you get to keep everything. So they're very, very, very happy about this. They kind of buy into the whole Greek culture thing. They're like cool about it and everything. And then Alexander dies. And then there's a split between his generals, Ptolemy and, I'm going to say this name wrong. I say all my names wrong. Salaminus. But Ptolemy and Egypt take over Jerusalem at the time. Now, of course, this is still way before Christ. And then a few rulers later becomes Antioch. Antiochus actually is the name, becomes the ruler of the area that's now Jerusalem. And I always found this interesting because, my first foray into the Antioch, even hearing that name, one of the planes of of the astral plane. In the old first edition books, that's where that first came up for me. But anyway, Antiochus
Yep.
starts and goes through him and then into his son, where they start changing the Jews into pretty much Greeks, Greek culture, Greek writing, Greek everything. And this is really, really interesting. The Jews called the Hellenists or Hellenisms
Yep.
that are sort of accepting the Greek culture, sort of forego religion and create gymnasiums. And they start focusing on the body and the perfection of the body. Have you heard this before?
Not this portion. I just spent a lot of hours listening to the history of Rome.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so there's a lot of stuff from the area, because the Eastern Roman Empire comprises the areas you're talking about, and then Greece was one of the Rome's first major conquests. A lot of it dealt with that kind of stuff. So
this is pre-Rome Empire. So it's kind of interesting to see where the Jews start separating now, because you have the religious sect and you have the spiritual and the physical sects start separating and everything. But what ends up happening is it's Antioch the Fourth or whatever. He just pushes stuff way over the limit. He starts limiting, Jewish worship, reading the Torah, everything that can possibly happen. And then I don't know, have you ever heard of Hannah and her 7 sons?
yes.
Okay, of course. So now they end up being killed. And there's actually a whole bunch of different people that are against Antioch. They're all killed, in the name of their faith and freedom of religion. And this is really cool because, you're talking 300 BC before Christ or whatever. Their names get carried to Byzantine Europe as saints. They're sort of martyred by the Europeans. At the same time, this whole thing is like sort of unreal. So now the Jews all fled to the hills, and of course, this is where the menorah comes from.
Okay.
The original design being 7 lights for the 7 days, but then when they come back, they defeat the Greeks, and after they defeat the Greeks, they have big celebration in their temple. And this is, what most people know is that they have no oil for the celebration, but yet there's a miracle and the oil lasts for 8 crazy nights. And then somehow the extra candelabra is added in there. So you have the same amount on each side. It's very interesting.
They don't have 1 day of presents. They have 8 crazy nights.
Right. And I've really been wondering about that. If that wasn't like somebody just said, I got too many kids, we need 8. I got 8 kids, we need to add 2 more candles or something. I don't know. There were 7. There's a lot going on. The other thing, we'd had a discussion, and someone asked about magical Q&A, about getting into Pythagoras and all that.
Okay.
And I've been wondering, too, if the 7 to 8 progression in the menorah had something to do with mathematics at the time as well.
At the risk of the government shutting us off the internet, it does seem like there are some of these themes that run through the entirety of human history, and math being the universal language seems to be one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll leave it at that. Like I said, it's just really nice. It's an intense story. The different, full nations of people involved, and you talk about what's the connection to a campaign or whatever. These objects, I think, the menorah itself.
Yeah,
that's the next part I was led down. I had no idea how far menorah creation had gone. There are menorahs that are the DC skyline. There are menorahs that are from nails from Auschwitz that have been assembled together,
like the Iron Throne, but for Christmas.
Yeah, like it's unbelievable. There are artists who have been commissioned to do $1 million metal sculptures of menorahs for churches,
Really?
and yeah, it's considered the number one religious. It's the that has been recreated the most in so many different forms, and
Really?
yeah, and
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because like with the cross, like you can't do a whole lot with that. It's a t, it's a it's a lowercase t. Not a whole lot of fanciness. And personally, I would if you start getting into custom engraving on the cross, I think you kind of miss the point. But I can see with the candelabra, obviously. I mean, you can decorate all the various parts of it, and I guess that makes sense.
Well, and then they become famous from, where was it? Where was it when? Where was it when then? And where is it now?
Well,
and
let me tell you, I don't want to glaze over what you said about the Auschwitz one. Besides the bad joke about it being the Iron Throne of menorahs, that's actually that. I would say in general, I mentioned this before, but pick up a history book and read some shit. The real life shit that's happened in history is as crazy as any fantasy story you're ever going to read. But little things like that is such a powerful. Well, it's such a powerful idea, given the horror that preceded it, and then turning it into something to worship and rally behind. It like I said, you could very easily see that real life thing translating into a game where some villain, maybe your big bad end game guy, does some horrendous thing, and then those who fight against him take some object or thing associated with the horrible tragedy, and then they use that to craft something to overthrow him. Or, since you never give up free content, they need your players to go through the steps to find the nails to turn into the item that defeats the boss.
And then the other thing I think about too is just having religious items themselves. We're talking about these menorahs and how valuable they are or whatever. Take a god in your campaign and maybe their items are worth something, and you don't have to campaign, doesn't have to be based around gold having all the great value or whatever, It can be religious items.
Oh, people throughout history have gone to war over the finger bone of a saint, or
right.
Certain crazy people with bad mustaches in history responsible for Auschwitz. There is a lot of legend and lore or folklore around the Nazis being obsessed with the occult, right?
Oh yeah.
So it goes. Funny. So it can go super wacky with some of that stuff. But
it's interesting you say that, because that's the documented ark. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, they put the tablets in an ark.
Yeah.
But there's documentation of the Jews putting a menorah in an ark to get it away from Jerusalem to keep it safe.
Ah.
So that's kind of interesting. And I thought about using an ark in your campaign.
When you're talking about that, I always think about the spear of Longinus, the spear that supposedly pierced Christ.
Right. Yes.
And that anybody who carried the spear into battle would not lose, and that's one of the legends that they don't get into it in Indiana Jones. They've gotten into it in some other shows, but the idea that the Nazis were looking for that.
Oh, my favorite cheesy show got into that. Legends of Tomorrow just jumped all over that. I love it.
But that idea that they're looking for these things because who's to say that it doesn't really have power?
They're great. They're great campaign runners. They really
100%. I mean, look at
Q&A.
Absolutely.
Menorah, and the holidays coming by. So sorry I couldn't cover it with Christmas tree and Santa Claus. It's too big. And Merwin is absolutely right. Take a look at any part in history, and you can you can definitely model a great battle into any of your worlds.
Oh yeah, battles, small historical events, weird beliefs from people. It's endless, and the beauty is that there's so much history that you can pick from and liberate. The cultures and things that nobody has dealt with. One of the things I do I think I mentioned it before. One of the things I do in my home games is I will look. I will often look and see if there is a real world culture that's analogous to something I'm building in the game, and then I will go through and I'll learn a little bit about that, and that will inspire at the very least names, but also can go a long way with giving ideas for campaigns and whatnot, adventures, story arcs. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I did my whole Facebook page called Magical Q&A, and I just pretty much put stuff about Magic that you can, hey, when I find some great article, I put it up there, and then I see how I can come back to it later and add it into my campaign.
Yeah. So, no, dude, I love that shit. Like, what did I see? What did I see today? Oh, do you know there's underground cities built in Turkey beneath, like?
Oh yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Or the Paris catacombs are another good one.
And how deep they go, they go is really intense.
And what's funny is you get people like, you get people that, look at, say, Fallout, right, the video game, and they're like, oh, they built the vaults for people to live in. That's so crazy. Well, what if those underground cities were just real world vaults that hide from meteors or whatever?
Yeah. No, I was just seeing
monsters.
I was just seeing in Jordan, Petra.
Yeah.
The ruins in Petra.
Yeah.
There was a rainstorm. So the gullies in between the cities had turned into flash flood rivers. And the cars are all getting stuck in the rivers. Oh, it looks like crazy. And I thought, what a great idea for a campaign. Here's this lost city in these different gullies, and all of a sudden the rain comes, and now you have sloshing sand and it's just great. There's so many things you can add in quickly.
I like it.
Woo!
I like it. It's good stuff, man. Good stuff. Well, that concludes this week's visit to the doctor's office. Just a reminder, everybody, if you like what we do here, please, like, share, and subscribe. Check out our Patreon to support us, the studio, and all of our products and shows. Check us out with our Discord. Like us on Facebook. Give us a share. Send it to your friends. Listen to us.
Check out our Enron Chronicle too. Give us some feedback. We're really looking for feedback from people. I mean, we can tell you to check all these sites. Come back at us too. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. We'd love to hear from you. Be awesome.
Absolutely. And as Doc said earlier, if you enjoy us on your favorite podcast platform, please give us a like, please give us a share, and thank you for giving us a listen. We appreciate it a ton. And we're growing. What do we have, 60 people in a week, you said?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
We're really good.
Pretty good. All right. So you threw me a curveball, man. I thought we were going to pick up some listener feedback, and you were going to throw in the thing about the D20s this week.
Well, no, it's interesting. I was going to say I wanted to cross into that a little bit because it's that same time period. I was going to say that somebody pitched. We're talking about the platonic solids and the dice, the actual dice that we used to play D&D. And then there was a big discussion about not using the 20-sided. We started talking about probability, and that's an even bigger subject than the menorah.
Okay.
But what's interesting is a lot of that math that goes along with those platonic solids was being discovered about this same time. And a lot of it was kept hidden for a long time, too.
Was it being discovered, or was it being rediscovered?
Rediscovered, yeah, that's a good question. So that, again, that's another huge issue where we can definitely go into platonic solids and math and probability.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I decided that I was going to throw a little bit of that stuff in right now because as we've been doing play tests, we're talking about mechanics and the way different things work and a few things. And I was making the notes here, and I realized that I almost got ahead of myself with what I was planning on talking about because we are going to have a special recording of the show next week on the 7th, I believe is the plan.
Yes, that is correct.
And our guests a couple of funny dudes that run their own podcast.
Yes, we got Mike and Jeremy who steal podcasts.
Yeah, which is a great idea, by the way. I'm an advocate of high level theft, so I'm all about it with those guys.
They're gonna try to steal our podcast, man. We got to keep our stealth up.
I don't know if they could possibly run a podcast as bad as us to steal ours. I don't. That's a feat. That's failing. That's failing so hard to win.
They want to even steal our podcast, but they're going to have to fail bad to steal our podcast.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, they can't do it. They can't do it any worse than we do it, right? But I was going to get into a game design thing. And I was making the notes for it, and then it hit me. I'm like, wait a second, I got to save it, because I've been specifically asked to give the full rant about why I hate Wizards of the Coast, just to give you a little preview. So I'm going to cut part of my notes out. Since you are a little run down, we'll make this a short topic. This is something I want to discuss in length at some point in time, so we'll roll it in when we talk about the D20s. But in a condensed version, I wanted to lay out what I call the case for crunch. And the reason I call it that is the gaming community term for rules and mechanic heavy systems and games. They call them crunchy. D&D, Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition, and then 3.5 were the culmination of a lot of years of added mechanics for things, and it's considered to be a crunchy system. And then the reason that you got 4th edition because they were trying to cash in on the MMORPG craze. They wanted to turn Momo nerds into D&D nerds.
Okay.
So they tried to write the game to work the way the video games do, and it's just not practical on pen and paper, in my opinion. But 5th edition is a bit of a rejection of the crunch. It's a slimmed down system, but Pathfinder took over from 3.5, so it's essentially D&D 3.75. And they kept that crunch in there, so that's a big division in the fantasy RPG community. The Pathfinder is for math nerds, and D&D 5e is for everybody else. But I am a fan of crunchier systems. So I was having a discussion. We'll call it a discussion last night about why dexterity is the best stat in the game, and I was trying to break it down for poor Ty, one of our voice people, and a writer, and an all around good dude.
He's a super playtester. He's a super playtester.
He's great. But I was trying to get into the math behind why dexterity is better than Constitution, and it got me thinking about this topic. So there's 1,000 ways this can go. It's one of these things, like most of the things that we've been putting together. It's going to be a topic we'll come back to when we'll hit it with specific things. So tonight, what I wanted to bring up was the D20 thing. But more importantly, different dice, and the idea that the system should reward characters differently for things, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So I'm going to ask you a broad question about D&D 5e, Doc. Feel free to fire with any answer you come up with. Here's the question. If I was to ask you to describe, not in numbers, but in just general verbiage, how much better with a sword a fighter is than a wizard of the same level, who we will assume that has no specific sword training. How much better do you think they are with a sword than the wizard would be?
You're asking me how much better a fighter would be with a sword than a wizard? I would think much better.
Assuming that now,
off the top of my head, would be much better than a wizard.
Now here's the thing. So now I'm going to keep adding. So so they should be. You feel like they should be way better, right? That's their thing. Right?
I mean, that's their thing. That's
okay.
That's my first impression.
What if I told you that both characters were the same level?
I'm still on the same page.
Okay. Now, what if they have the same exact stats in the same exact order? So they have the same strength, same dex, and everything.
Now, they could be equal with a sword, then maybe.
Okay.
I kind of feel.
So does that feel right to you?
When you first said this, and my first impression was, the fighter's better. the next thing is, well, there's some sorcerers that might wield a sword pretty well. I can think of some good examples in literature, or whatever. So it's also a skill-based thing. Technically, I kind of feel can I pitch that out there?
Ken?
Because in fact, my sorcerer actually uses a staff as his arcane focus,
Mm-hmm.
and then also a polearm master so that he can use it as an effective weapon.
Well, now here's the thing. So now you're getting into feats and different skill sets. But
Okay,
the point of the exercise is this.
Sorry.
You're good. No, the point of the exercise is this. Does it feel right that a wizard with no specialized training, now we will say he can use a sword because there is a slight mechanical tweak. I think if you pick up a weapon you're not proficient with it, you get disadvantage.
Yeah, right.
Which works out to be basically -5. That's what the math is, right? So, barring that, we'll assume they know how to use a sword, but have never touched one, ever. They never use it, but they know how to, right? Racial feat or whatever. There is mathematically and mechanically, there is zero difference in how good the wizard is who has never used a sword and how the fighter is who uses it constantly. And that feels wrong to me.
I
right?
think okay.
Right. It's kind of an immersion breaking thing, and it feels a little bit wrong. And it's like, okay, yeah.
But is it a point of view thing too, though? Is it like, because we're old schoolers, like you were saying about, missing the reference, do younger D&D folk not feel that doesn't make a difference? That whether it's a rogue or whether it's a fighter or...
Well, maybe.
They can all use the sword because everyone can use the sword because everyone wins at the soccer game.
Okay. Maybe.
But
now let me
so attitude? I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. So that's I will give you that. So let's compare apples to apples though. And this is where the math comes in. Assuming that you have the same gear, the same stat, so we'll say strength, the same strength stat. You're both strapping young lads with an 18 strength or 20 strength. That's the cap you can get in D&D 5e. So, how much better with the sword do you think a 20th level fighter should be from a first level fighter? Just in terms of hitting their opponent.
Yeah, they should be much better. You would think they would be much, much better.
Do you know how much better they are than a first level fighter with the same stats?
They're actually not much better. They just get a lot more times to try to hit somebody.
They are 15% better, plus 3 better, because proficiency is capped.
Right. Because they get to get more, right?
Well, but it's the system. So they're only plus 3. They're only 15% better, right?
Right.
So the question becomes, is it worth it in the game to add to the crunch of it to make that be different in a meaningful way? Does it matter that much?
I think it becomes a matter of campaign now.
Okay.
Where I think about 1E rules.
Right.
And certain classes couldn't use certain weapons, and certain races couldn't be certain class. That whole thing. Where I think a lot of this stuff comes down to your DM and your players and what you decide at 0 and how you're going to roll it out. I mean, I think that's an honest opinion answer to that right now.
No, it's fair enough.
That should be laid out when you get started.
Yeah. See, one of the reasons that this gets to me, not that I, besides talking about it last night, was in older editions there was very little mechanically different between a high level fighter and a low level one. Or sorry, I apologize. There was a lot of difference because the way they calculated your bonus to hit, it was a massive difference.
Right. I see what you're saying. Yes.
Right. And that was in a system where magic items were really the big thing that differentiated your character.
You moved up the chart based on what level you were, how much better you were.
And you got way better. So second edition, the way the system worked was a level 1 guy essentially got a +1, got a +0 to hit. Nobody had a bonus, but basically +1. And then every level of fighter, you got +1 more to hit. Because your THAC0, the holy grail of Common Core math mechanics, your to hit number went down every level. So a 20th level guy basically had +20 to hit, and a first level guy had +1 to hit. So if you gave him the same items, the 20th level fighter was 200 times more likely to hit than the first level guy. So he would hit 3 times as much. That's the math of it. So basically, if you attacked 10 times the same monster 10 times, if the first level fighter hit once, the 20th level guy hit 3 times. 300% more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's significant, right? And on top of that, they got all this other stuff, right? That was a big mathematical difference, and that was at a time when stats were a bigger deal, and the mechanics were a lesser deal. I'm getting myself backwards today. I didn't have enough coffee. I apologize. Sorry. That was in a system where magic items were the big thing to define your character. That was your big power up, is getting magical stuff. Your classes didn't really do much for you. Right. This was still in the game.
You had your ability scores from day one, and they stayed with you, and you really didn't get much.
Nothing got
added or subtracted unless a monster DM freaking got you.
Did something horrible with you. But I think this is where in the modern game they've kind of gone awry, because in the modern game magic items don't matter. It's stats. There's so much baked into your class, so every fighter gets all the same things. Right. There isn't any there, and then it comes down to stats, but as stats and proficiency bonus. So at the end of the day, there is almost nothing that differentiates the characters mechanically.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There is nothing that does differentiate the characters mechanically, and I feel like this is where the theater of the mind part helps me. When I make a character, I've been thinking about this a lot, especially because test playing. We have players that push every limit, and they've got characters that got dips in everything, so that they got extra this and extra that. I've been thinking about this more and more. In like an epic drama or in a movie, that character pulls out that super ability like as a last ditch thing. He doesn't know he has it all the time. So I've really been trying to approach playing as, okay, I got this ability at 6th level, but I don't need to exercise it every turn.
Right.
Like, I need to think about a dramatic way to introduce this to the table for everyone that isn't just a selfish way to play it. And I think this is an interesting thing. I don't know if this is discussed much.
Right.
In a video game, you push that A button, C button. You use every feature you have.
Mm-hmm.
But in a role-playing game, do you keep some of those things close to your chest so that they play more dramatically as part of the game for everyone? Like a Ace in the Hole, or everyone is very proud to tell everyone about all these things they have, when maybe they should be more keeping them inward. Am I making an interesting point here, or am I?
No. Well, this is one of the things. So, to spin it into a philosophy thing, because the math of it, unfortunately, if you're not a math nerd, it gets kind of boring. So it's one of these topics where I bring it up, and I'm like, I feel like we're teaching class.
I was going to say you're getting really close to. You're very deep into math. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm trying to dance around that. I'm trying to dance.
Everyone else is turning you off right now.
I know. We got one commenter in the chat. I'm looking up the rules to make sure I was correct about the THAC0 drop and the progression of it. But no, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I like to get into it. It becomes a philosophy thing, and like you're saying, yes. As a play style, you can do things beyond what the mechanics have, and a lot of people do that, and they prefer to play the game that way, and whatnot. So that's why my question comes. I would come back to you with this. My main question is it worth it to have all those rules, or to try to differentiate the classes, or have them be balanced on in different ways. Is it worth doing that in the game? Is it worth having those rules, or should we go the other way and have even less rules, and really leave it in the hands of the storytellers and the players to differentiate their characters and to make them feel different, and then to have unique game experiences? Do you need to have rules in there to help that shit happen?
It's interesting because you say that, and the first thing I think is leave it in the hands of the players. But then I think about that's been the progression of the game. You wouldn't have had a druid or a bard if they hadn't come out of the fandom creating them back in the day, and then they became they're the standard classes now. Or you think of the old illusionist, is like more of like a subclass now or whatever,
right?
So I don't know. There's part of me that thinks that some of it helps the game evolve, but then there's a point where I think a lot of it is really up to the game people to say, how far am I going to go with this? I always look at literature too, because I keep thinking of like Elric. Elric was this flawed magician. He was, he's chronically ill. He's genetically, there's something wrong with him. He is a magician, but his family are warriors, and he can handle a sword. You're talking about, can a wizard handle a sword? He's able to handle a sword. So, I mean, there's examples where these things kind of cross over, and I think you need to, again, it becomes a campaign issue and which way you're playing.
Right. Well, like I said, I think if you get to choose to take the time and learn how to use a sword, then that's a thing for you to get, right? But I don't know, and I want them to be to mechanically. I think it needs to be different. There needs to be that. One of the things I've proposed as a house rule is you take away the bonus to hit. You make the proficiency bonus in 5e specific to what the class does. So a wizard gets proficiency bonus on spells, spell attacks and everything, ranged or melee. They don't get that on weapons. Because they have cantrips, so they have an infinite supply of free damage at range. So do they need to have that apply to a weapon?
Wait. Now, so you say that? See, and I don't even think about it. Now, I'm gonna be honest. I mean, when I play my sorcerer and I'm using my quarterstaff, is beyond adding that proficiency bonus?
Yes. Yeah.
See, that's odd. I would.
Yeah, and like you said,
that's to me. I would say no. I want to take that out. So, is there a way I can go in there manually and say I don't want to use that bonus? So,
yeah. But this is the thing. So this is that's my thought. That's the reason this is a topic I like to discuss.
I kind of I like this idea that where maybe the DM and the players could control that kind of stuff, and like we're saying that it can become part of the mechanics of the game if they so choose to do that. That's kind of an interesting concept.
Well, it's one of the things. There's a lot of things I hate, which you are all well aware of.
Oh yes.
But a big part of that is I despise the idea of wizards using crossbows, and and let me tell you, that goes back to a time when there wasn't cantrips. People didn't have the free, reliable spell to use. So wizards just had the spell slots that they had. That was the end of it. There wasn't any free stuff.
But again, I think again it's just an upbringing thing, because some new teenager could come up with this great concept for a wizard that uses a crossbow and writes a really cool background story, and it sells. I feel like some of that is ingrained in us that we're just not used to it. That's all.
I mean, maybe, and like I said, I get the people want different things. So, like, I don't have a problem. I'm a bit of a hypocrite here. I don't have an issue with Gandalf using a sword. Like, that's never bothered me.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
You can't say that. I mean, I feel like you're saying this because Hawkeye has no superpowers and all he has is arrows.
Oh, that doesn't bother me at all.
But it's sort of the same thing. You're saying a wizard can't use a crossbow.
No, but I guess the point.
Doctor Strange can't use
Well, this is my thing. This is my point. If you were watching if you were watching like the Avengers, right? And Tony Stark picked up a bow and arrow and started blasting people with it the way Hawkeye does, wouldn't you be like, what the fuck? Like, because like, doesn't that feel wrong to you?
Well, that's sold. Well, wait a minute. Didn't that sold Captain America picks up the hammer to attack Thanos? People fucking ate that shit up.
No, that's different though. That's different.
I don't know how different.
Here's the thing: if the next Avengers movie starts and Thor builds a Iron Man suit for himself, you'd be like, what the fuck is this?
No, you're right.
You know. So I don't know. So I always go back and forth on this because, like, again, it's kind of a hypocritical point, right?
Yeah, it's all a storyline thing and how it plays in the story.
How you play it out. Yeah, like I don't want my players to focus on stats, like especially in the older editions when stats were much more important. Like I wanted them to focus on character, and now I've gone the other direction. We get into the modern game, and I just wish I wish everyone wasn't good at everything all the time.
Right.
Like I like that because this thing it's like killing people. That's I guess it falls under the same line for me that if you can't create drama when there is not, you can't create tension and drama when there's no conflict, and if you're and this is part of my reason why I don't like cantrips too. If your wizard is never runs out of reliable high damage stuff to do, right? There's never that feeling of getting weaker, right? And I know the argument is, well, fighter can always swing their sword. I get that, and that's a problem too. But you can't create tension. You can't create the tension for that character that they're running out of resources. And then
you're absolutely right, and it's that attitude that Dungeons and Dragons has become a board game that everybody has to win, and no one can die. And if you can't have that death as a consequence, because there's so many powers now to supersede it, it does sort of suck the life. It sort of sucks the thrill out of it. That's what made it daring and thrilling. That first time you went into Tomb of Horrors was we're all going to die.
Yeah.
And I think this is the other thing. When someone does die at the table,
mm-hmm.
I often think of the movie The Big Chill, right? The Big Chill, you have
definitely a reference most people aren't going to get.
So I go into a little bit. So these college people grow up, get older. One of their friends from college dies, so they end up getting back together, and they have to they sort of go through this rite of passage of experiencing each other again and how their lives have changed and all this sort of thing. I think that's true on the table too. I think when a player character dies on the table, I think the players go through a cathartic event. That one player that's really upset that their character is dead, they have to identify with that feeling, much like in real life when you have to identify with death. And I think this is something you need to talk about. We need to talk about because, playing with chronically ill folk, we face this every day. Am I going to be alive tomorrow? Kind of thing. And I don't think players feel that feeling. And I think that was original feeling of the game, is that death is a real consequence in the game. And even when you come back to that next table, and that one player's died, and that player has made a new character, and all the characters are meeting the new character. Mm-hmm. All the players are figuring, how can I fit this new character into my story? It's part of the game that is not in the rules. There is no feat or nothing explains that part of the game.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons.
That's what makes us bond at the table and the memories that go on and on and on.
Yeah,
right.
Which is funny because you say that, and then I remember back in the original versions of the game, you brought extra characters with you because you knew you were going to die. So it almost cheapened life. But it's one of the reasons why I 1,000% shamelessly stole the whole idea of the ritual behind like Raise Dead from Critical Role, because I'll tell the story for the first time.
Go ahead.
So I don't know if I like Critical Role because I like Critical Role, at least the first 2 seasons, or if I liked it because I happened to discover it at a time when I was going through something. It was the same around the same time when my father passed away, and it was just coincidence. But while we were dealing with the 4 months that took, they had a couple of characters like die, and then I got to experience the Raise Dead ritual that they use, where the other players have to basically make a case during the casting of Raise Dead for the soul to return. So how do you want to contribute? Yeah, how do you want to contribute to making the spell work? How do you want to convince the soul to come back? And again, they're actors. They've trained to provide drama. So I don't know how well this works for other people. I've done it. I've had it come up 1 time so far in my campaign, but listening to it at that time in my life was such an impactful thing because that's that's unfortunate. That's a lot of what happens when if you have the unfortunate incidents of having someone pass away slowly, where you think about that shit, what you would say and what you would give to reverse what was going on and everything. So it hit me really hard. So I never know if I really got hooked on the show because it hit me on that emotional level at that particular time, or just because the show was good. I think it's because the show was good because I listened to season 2 and not season 3.
No, it's even what you're talking about. They put that much thought into, okay, we're going to have all the players involved in this ritual, whether they're wizards or not. This sort of goes back to your point about what we were saying about who can use the sword and who didn't use the sword. So did the barbarian, I don't know, I'm not familiar with the show, so did other classes that would have nothing to do with raising the dead had something to say?
Yeah, there's something to do with it. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you found Well, and that's I guess. Well, I actually unintentionally stumbled on a good point for what I'm saying. That's an example of adding a mechanic to the game that enhances it.
Exactly.
Right. See, I got there eventually, guys. I got there. But
and again, this is what I was saying too. The same thing. It's about the DM and the players coming together and saying, how can we get everything to click together in an involved
everything to play out the way we want it.
Right.
Fair enough. So one of the, my concluding point, because again I'm truncating the topic because I don't want to get into stuff that I'm saving for my epic rant next week on Saturday night, or Saturday during the day. Actually, I think we're recording, but was with the playtest for D&D 1 going on. There's the focus of the playtest is on all this mechanical stuff to make classes better, and all the videos are about how this class is broken and this ability is too good, or this race is worthless now. All that kind of stuff. They changed flying, so it made certain choices worse and whatever. That's like 90% of the playtest content that you're seeing out there on the internet and what's in the documents. It's all mechanical stuff that has very little to do with character and with the engagement with the game and everything. There's no real tweaks to that kind of stuff that we've seen. It's all basically combat math. Right. Well, combat math and abilities and whatnot. And I'm okay with some of that stuff. Like, one of the things, like, I don't. And you can let me know how you kind of handle this, because I'm interested to get your opinion. Okay. Before we move into our story, then break time. So there's a lot of dead space in the design of D&D 5e. There are like half your levels you get nothing, or at least there are levels. There are some classes that are better and worse than others, where you just hey, I'm level 7, I get to roll an extra hit die. I get nothing else. And I see it with the players where they're like, people went up a level and like, oh, I got this cool new spell. Hey, I finally got my fucking this ability. And then they're like, hey, what did you get? And they're like, I got to roll this D8 and add some hit points, kind of thing. And it's just like, oh. And then you can see it. People are, when you get close, when you're building the story up towards getting to the next level, if people look to see what they're going to get, and if the level is a fucking dud, there's like, oh, it just totally deflates them, right? But in D&D 1, it looks like what they've done, which credit to them as much as I hate them, it looks like a lot of every level you're getting something, right? So I think that's a good idea. So how do you handle it, though? How do you handle that mechanical disappointment in your game? Not having some new shiny thing to do every level, and your advancement is basically just is a minimal thing.
I think one, you have to be perceptive to it. If you're not aware what's going on with your players, or when they haven't got their abilities, or if they're the one that, like, especially if you're doing by experience points, everyone else has made the new level and they haven't, those things you got to kind of keep track of yourself. What I like to do in those cases is maybe have that person as like a focus for the adventure or something else that happens, or maybe sneak an item in for them in that level that's going to give them a boon, or something that they were thinking about, or hey, you know what, this is going to get them involved in the game. Everybody else just got new spells or whatever. So that's something I try to do. I think that's definitely an easy solution to it. I don't seem to have players feel like that as much. And I also tend to use a combination of, what would you call it? Experience and, is it events?
Milestones?
Yeah, milestones. I would use, I don't want to call it milestones. I think it's more of events for me. Like, it's a really big event.
Points in the story. I like it.
Yeah. I think it can be a level up situation. And I'm also very keen to the I know everyone's talking about, you got to train and blah 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 blah. Sometimes just what we were just talking about. What about the level up right at the moment it's needed?
In the flow of the battle, you kill a minion, and that's what dings you up. That's one of our people, TJ from the studio in our chat. Welcome to the show. He points out that the thinks D&D 1 is going to bomb because they're doing all this work on catering it to the video game crowd, right? And that's a classic video game moment that happens. Where you get
the extra boost.
And sometimes you beat the boss. You wouldn't have beat the boss otherwise, right? Right. So there's some benefit to that. So I think we hit upon a couple of good points, and that one of which I wasn't even thinking is that I think that you should add mechanics if they enhance the game. I certainly believe that, and I do think. And it will vary. I agree with you. It will vary from player to player. The impact of the characters being balanced around each other, and how much math you have built into that. For me, as a simulationist and a strict kind of Tolkienian fantasy person, I do think the characters need to be differentiated. I don't think that everyone should be equally good at everything, and there should be options for you to get mechanical advantages based on your class that other people can't get. Fighters should get to find some ways to improve themselves in fighting that a wizard wouldn't get. But I definitely agree with you, obviously. If the mechanics just make it chunky, it's probably not worth it.
Well, I was going to say, too, don't just add mechanics and say, let's make this a 20-sided. And not know what you're using that probability. A lot of people will make a mechanic, put something in there for probability, and they don't know. It's not really what they want it. Does that make sense? Like, they don't see the math behind what they just picked as the dice. Yeah, well, that's. I'll tell you, that's
one of those things where I guess we'll close this topic out on this point because it's a dry one for anybody who's not a math nerd. Yeah. I don't think people have a firm grasp on what a dice is. The dice is the mechanism by which you introduce random chance to success and failure. That's what it's for in the game. So you have a random range of outcomes, and it puts that excitement into it because you don't know if you're going to succeed, right? So, but people get I hear one of the things that I hear is people go, well, it would be better if it was a percentile dice for everything because then you can really get in there and see the differences in things. A D20 is just a percentile dice that counts by fives. That's all it is.
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And as far as the case for Crunch goes, I like the idea. I'm definitely a math nerd. I like the idea of percentiles because you can have a lot more things that are in the game that you can access that give you an advantage and that builds over time, and you can see the progress because you went and spent 3 days of downtime training with somebody, so you get 1% more on your roll. Doesn't sound like a lot until you roll a 77 and hit, where before you trained a 77 would have missed out of 100. But
yeah, I just feel like a lot of that I feel like I do as a DM in theater of the mind. Again, that's where I think the difference is. If you're really in touch with your players and what's going on in the campaign, you don't need to give your fighter an extra +1. When you're having that BBEG moment, you're going to add that into the description. That's something, when he hits, or you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It's an experience level thing as a DM. Yeah. Sorry, I got away from the mic there.
No, you're good. Well, anyways,
I'm excited to hear your story tonight. You didn't tell me anything about.
No, I'm gonna break out a classic now. So again, I thought we were gonna get into the D20 thing. So this story would have been better for that topic, but I wrote it down and I've been thinking about it, so I'm gonna use it.
Okay.
Because it is. I'm going to give you the description of the birth of a legendary item, not in the game, but in real life. But before I do, thank you for listening. I know the math topic is not a big hit with a lot of people, and shame on me for not redesigning what I was going to go into, because I had to cut out half of it. That wasn't straight math. It was game design stuff, but I'm saving that for what we talk about next week. But let me ask you to like, share, and subscribe. Let your friends know about this, and thank you for checking us out. Let's move on to story time before we go into our break today. Break today's, I think it's going to be about 10 minutes is the new loop. So that is just enough time to keep you interested, but not enough time for you to go to sleep. So, I ran only a few long-term campaigns to their conclusion, and I was fortunate as a teenage DM to get through an entire campaign. And I was sitting around with my friend the other day talking about the various story beats of the campaign, and I said, I don't know if I'm old, if I'm nostalgic, but I remember the game fondly. I remember it was a great success. We have all these stories from it, but I was having a hard time remembering all the little story arcs. And then he brought up one of the bigger ones, and then it's always put a smile on my face, because it proves that I'm an evil DM. Which was one of our people in the chat last week. I was turning her into an evil DM. My disciple, I don't see you here, but I know that you will carry on what I have taught you. So, but we worked, and it was kind of a midpoint around like 8th, 9th level in the game, and I don't like to give out magic items. I'm again a Tolkien kind of person in that respect, where I don't think every twig needs a backstory, but I do think weapons and whatnot should have some history to them, because I don't like the idea, and especially in the old game, where wizards had to burn a constitution point permanently to make a magic item. So it didn't make sense to me that you'd have, Gnome Mart, where you go in there and there's a barrel of +1 swords on sale for half off today,
right?
Because someone's dying to create those. And if I was a wizard and I'm going to burn con points, why would I make fucking swords? I don't use swords. We're not doing that. That's stupid. So, but I worked up this story arc where I wanted the cleric in the game, who could use swords because he was a Tempest cleric, a war cleric. I wanted to get him a cool-ass weapon, right? But I'm evil. I can't just let him find one. I've got to make him suffer. So I spun this tale. The characters who had gained renown, we were playing in Forgotten Realms, so I apologize if you don't get all the references. They're kingdoms and places. Go look it up. It's a pretty good setting, in my opinion. Where they go to the deserts of Kalamashan, which is, this far down, way down past the Sword Coast. And they are hired to get items or get materials to craft this ridiculous sword, right? Because their benefactor had a vision. He had a vision that this blade would be needed to defeat their arch nemesis, the wizard Nereus, whose soul had been split across time, and they kept running into different versions of him: Zacharias, Nereus, and then Nullius, his finished form. In order to defeat him permanently, you needed to destroy his soul. To do that, you needed a soul-stealing sword.
Okay.
So several games were played while they went seeking the components to make the sword, because the cleric in the game, he needed to be the one to craft it. His god's blessing was required, his touch, because of their connection to and battle against this evil wizard. He had to be there. His hands had to touch materials. He had to craft the blade.
Okay.
So they go through all of these games. They find the components. This benefactor is there with them, cheering them on, supporting them, helping them out. They get the components. We have an epic crafting montage where the prince, who was their benefactor, shows up, and he has this ornate sash that gives him the strength of a giant, because you need this strength to bend these materials. So he and the cleric work hand in hand for days, crafting this ebon blade that can steal swords.
Souls.
Sorry, I said swords. Souls. So they finish. He looks upon his work and he goes, "I think we need to celebrate." He hands a drink to the cleric, who happily imbibes it, forgetting for a brief moment in his exhilaration about crafting the sword that I'm evil. He drinks the drink. And I go, "Okay, well, when you wake up the next day..." "What do you mean wake up the next day?" "Oh, you drink the drink. Not very good. Your benefactor and the sword is gone. You are dumped in an alley and wake up just in time for the prince's men to try to murder you." They battle their way through. They finally catch up with the prince and confront him. A fight breaks out between the party, which is this war cleric, and then the wizard, who was always invisible. Most annoying mechanic.
Always.
The worst spell ever in 2nd edition. It was so broken.
Right.
The battle ensues, and out walks the prince wearing the belt of giant strength, wielding the soul-stealing blade. My players look at me and they're like, "Man, you're a dick. We hate you so much." I go, "I know. It's amazing." I go, "Don't worry about it, man. I mean, there's 2 of you guys. You're probably going to kick his ass. I mean, he only steals a soul if I roll a natural 20. So I picked up the orange die to make the first attack of the combat. And I will tell you what happens when we get back after our break. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, like, share, and subscribe. It's about a 10-minute loop. We've got a couple of things to do. I'm going to leave you with our music. Brand new intermission put together by our producer, Josh. And I will finish the story when we get back right about, we'll say, 11:50. That's 12 minutes. So I will see you guys then. Mute the mics. Enjoy the music. And we will talk to you guys on the other side.
we won despite of our greedy roll, the loot and all in sight. Oh, and now we have cursed armor, the rogue never knows better. Our barn is tried, casting a dispel magic, barbarian. Just build a straight check, our paladin says she won't lift a finger. The rogue was panicked and said, oh, it's too easy, killing off the players level 1 PC. No longevity, falling off too high a tree. No more HP. No more HP. You better please. Preparing battlegrounds, level 1's in the crowd. Not many are allowed, one crit could bring them down. So squishy from the mold, they're weak but very bold. Took hours to propose, but seconds to dispose. Who starts this alone, you sadist? Yeah, they'll get ground to great dust. So nice. They always start out so nice. Now I'm starting to weep. Myra whiffs every stab. All these rolls are a joke. I should wave the white flag. With my movement I fled, but then I hear a click, and all I see is red as I fail with my. My bank account busting, never have enough. All of my friends judging. This one's oversized, this one hurts the most. Managing my heart, are you taking notes? Just once said and you're well on your way. You think that you're done, but you can't disobey. The voice is in your head, it's a lethal dose. Click, clack, you're a dragon, you've been diagnosed. Hey, you beautiful showcase, I need a set for every race.
to the way your mind is played right there before me. I'm an aberration creeping in the underdark, just lurking. I share everything with Elder Brain. We speak with telepathy, lawful evil. Eat your brain, I drop your HP down to nothing.
Show me what's inside your mind, behind that pretty face. I can't dominate monsters, but they take once a day.
And you can lead your bodies to me, make them wish they fled. I'm in their heads, inciting dread, and now they're wondering.
Wondering.
To myself, fudge a couple numbers so the body don't run out of health. Won't reach the perfect if you can't watch them bleed. It's a lot of balance. Ooh, gotta balance this reflects how other players gonna handle taking next now. Not to end their fun, the game is done. Ooh, it's a pleasure to inflict out. You don't think it was a players that the trick out. And you feel they won with a scrum.
Apparently my mid-break snack was overheard by the chat. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the game. Brought to you by Dungeon Studios, the worst run podcast on the internet. Thank you for sticking around with us. I am Grom, your host, back with Dr.Pletorius and the second half of our story.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I was thinking about, heard you crunch. I said, he said 11:50. What's he doing?
I was a little peckish, and I made the mistake of coming down here without a liquid drink once my coffee is gone. So I may have to skedaddle, and hopefully nobody hears me run away.
Get a refill.
So where we left off,
So
or as I use at the start of my games, let us resume the story. Well, let us pick up the story so far. The battle begins. The prince runs over there, and I hold up in my hand a single orange D20. I say, "Look, man. Yeah, they stole the sword. Yes, I'm evil, but dude, like I gotta roll a natural 20 to steal your soul. It's not like that's gonna happen. You know, I mean, what are the odds?" I throw the dice, and as if the gods had heard me, the orange D20 comes up, a natural 20. First round, first attack of the combat. Dead. Instantly, soul taken. Claire's body drops to the ground, and my buddy's just sitting there, and like you said, the emotional impact of that character death just deflated the whole room.
Yeah.
And then the wizard, who was invisible, hadn't done anything yet, decided to stay invisible because he was not going to die here.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And he left.
I forgot about the invisible wizard. He ran away.
And he left. And you know, the session ended. There was much arguing back and forth, and you know, during the week, you know, my buddies came over, and actually the victim of this horrid offense of mine is my friend Jamie, who was in our original playtest of Titan's Peak, the alpha beard.
Yeah.
So, you know, we hang out during the week, and he's all bummed out and everything. And this is the kind of thing that would end a campaign, you know, back in the day, like character gets whacked, it's game over. You know, there's only 2 of them in the game consistently. So I talked to the wizard player, the infamous Mount St. Mikey. And I'm like, "Look, man," I go, what do you want to do, man? Make a new character, I guess, for him? And he goes, "Well, is there any way I can save him?" And I go, "Well, you'd have to get into the sword. You have to get access to the sword, find a way into whatever dimension it holds the souls it steals, and get his soul back." He goes, "All right, I want to figure out how to do that." So we contrived a way for it to work. We played a session midweek, just he and I, to get to that point. And then the day we were supposed to play the next main game in the campaign, we get together early in the morning, you know, in Mike's in his mom's apartment, and we have this epic one-on-one game where he manages, invisible of course, to get to the sword, gets inside of it, and battles his way through enemies, eventually defeating this 200-point like ooze acid god monstrosity thing that I had come up with as the guardian of the souls and the sword. And now this is 2nd edition D&D. 200 hit points is a mountain of hit points.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Especially for a wizard to do by himself. So he burned every charge on the wand of lightning he had found. He had burned every spell, every scroll, just to save his friend's soul, and he did. We finish up maybe 20 minutes before Jamie's due over. Jamie comes in, and I'm like, "Oh, hey man, you got your dice and make a new character?" He's like, "Yeah, I just started making a new character. I got some ideas." You know that, you know, just you could see, you could feel it, right? You could feel it. And I go, "Sit down," and go. I sit down, and you know, big smile on Mike's face, and I go, "All right, well, I mean, you can make a new character, or you could keep playing the one you have." He goes, "Well, they stole my soul. I'm dead." I go, "Oh no." I go, "Your ally, your brother in arms, found a way to save your soul and paid to have you resurrected." And, you know, big cheers. We play the session. They confront the prince again, this time knowing, obviously, what the game is, right?
Right.
We start the battle, and I look down, and I go, "Oh, shit, man." I go, "Have you guys seen my orange D20? They're like, no. I'm like, "Yeah." I go, "Apparently I didn't put it back in my little box because we normally play it at my place." They go, "Oh, that's fucking crazy." Weeks pass. I don't find it. Months pass. I haven't seen it. I resigned myself. And I'm sad because this is the D20.
That was your die 20.
No, this is the D20 from the set I bought from Mike's older brother Jimmy, R. Eddie Munson, like I was buying drugs when I was 14 years old.
Right, yeah, you've talked about
Gone. gone. I was so sad about it. And then I think it had to be 2 years later. I go, hey dude, I found the D20. I found it. I got it, and I have an orange one. It's actually, I could show, if we had cameras going, I could show it to you. I actually have it in my dice box to this day. I go, yeah, dude. I go, I must have lost it somewhere. And Jamie looks at me and he goes, that's not the orange D20. I go, no, it is. He goes, no, it's not the orange D20 because after you killed me with it, I took it. I go, you took the orange D20? He goes, yes. I go, well, can I have it back? He goes, no. He goes, you will never get it back. I will never tell you where it is. You will never see it again. It is gone from you forever. You will never do that to me again. And we're 45 now. This man has kept this fucking dice hidden from me for 35 years. Or 33 years, sorry. So that was the birth of the real world artifact, the orange D20.
I love it. And it goes all along with, we were talking about how death is something they don't talk about. You know, it bonds a table. It really, really does. It really does. Yeah,
it does. Thank you very much. I have some in-game world building stuff that was focused around the character that I had in my world building that was, the old man type thing. And actually, a couple years after he had passed away, I had written up what the end of life stuff was for the character, and I was going to run it in a game, and I couldn't get myself to do it, so I just kind of skipped it. And then finally, we're going on it'll be 5 years in February, which February is the worst month ever, by the way. That's going to be one of my. That'll be today's thing I hate because I didn't really have anything. I'm going to get into February. February sucks
for you.
Oh, it fucking sucks. February's a month of death. I'll tell you why at the end of the show. But I finally was at a point where I could put that into a game, and it showed up in a little side scene, and nobody really interacted with it, but I certainly did that. So it is in there. And, well, speaking of world building, that's what I wanted. The main topic for today was going to be. So we talked before about world building, tips and tricks, day one DM stuff, player perspective world building, and some ideas about different things. Oh, sorry, I was just looking at producer Josh's notes, and apparently you can not only hear me chew, but also see hear the wrapper I opened. So sorry, everybody. I'm not very good at this. No, so we talked about all that stuff, and then it made me realize something. We've gone over it, but let's actually build something. One of the things that we do, and this is a shameless plug, thinly veiled for you creatives out there, one of the things that you and I do is write modules and, despite the grumpiness of our producer and the head of the studio, try to create lore and world build for Eneron.
Right.
In our work. I see Todd's in there, man. I see what's going on in the chat. How you doing, Todd? Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for joining us. I think we're up to like 4 whole people on the internet. That's awesome. I might also have something in our regular chats over here. Did I miss something? No. What did I miss? Well, I'll find it in a second, I'm sure. Anyways, though, so I thought it would be a great idea. Let's actually world build something. I had this segment originally when I was trying to set up my own podcast, and it was a fun exercise. I got together with my buddy and I said, "Hey, look, let's build the thing. We're going to talk through it. We're gonna throw it out there." And I thought it'd be good for us to do this as we're closing out on our Kickstarter. That ends in 6 days. Please help us out. As we're closing in on the end of that, though, we're going to move on to new projects. There are these last little details we're wrapping up in the Kickstarters and whatnot. And I thought it would be a good exercise to kind of get a head start on what we're going to do next and let the people out there who are listening and watching live on Facebook and whatnot contribute through the chat in what we're going to build. And the benefit is it will show, how we put some of these things into practice that we've talked about in prior shows. So, do you got a notebook and a pen and paper handy?
I have my board right here. I'm ready to go.
Wonderful. So, let's run through the kind of the greatest hits on this. So one of the best things you can do, obviously, is not give up free content, collaborate with your players or other DMs or other people that you have to pull some of this stuff down. So I'm thinking, what do we build today? We've talked about locations. We mentioned Petra in Jordan. I talked about the underground cities for, excuse me, in Turkey. Magic items. We've talked about the menorah. We've talked about a menorah made of nails from Auschwitz. And characters. We've talked about a bunch of lively folks and different things. You mentioned the Botel and some of the murder mystery characters in there. So, what sounds like fun to build? I was reading stuff in there. In the chat.
I was thinking somebody would chat to you here.
Nope, it seems we have a battle brewing about how people died, which is a good one too. Well, so I also mentioned, like I said, funeral rites and different things. So, person, place, thing, events.
I'd like to do a non-player character, a person, because I'm not so good at. Yeah, let's do a person.
All right. So, if I was sitting down to write this is my personal method. Doc, you can chime in with what you do, and we're going to build this up for the fun of it. Well, we're going to build it, to answer our chat, we're going to build a dude, and maybe he will make his way into a module or something that we work on next for Eneron, or maybe into your home game. Really, it's less about it's less about where we get to and more about the journey. So, all right, you want to build a person. So why do you want to build this person? Do you have a need for it in the game? Do you need a character for encounter? Do you need a character to flesh out the world? Do you want to have somebody on standby?
It's just somebody on standby. Because I'm always a random roller guy, and then when I hit that, I hit that I need a random player. I don't have one ready.
Okay.
All right.
So is this okay? So
this definitely going to be and I'll say it's definitely in my forest setting. How about that? Does that help?
Okay. So you need a NPC in the forest setting that the players are going to run across.
Right.
That you may have to pull out.
Right.
So, major or minor character?
Minor.
Minor. Okay.
Minor.
So do they help the party? Do they hinder the party?
I guess it could go either way. I kind of feel like, depending on the how the party interacts with them, maybe. Could I say that?
Okay.
Ask those questions?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's okay. So somebody who's variable, and is your intention that they be a threat to the party if it goes bad? A boon? I hate gnomes. Get out of here, chat. You're drunk. Druid's the obvious one. We don't want to do that. So, okay, so they could help, they could hurt, directly or indirectly?
No, you ask. I think they can hurt. I think they can be a viable enemy to the party.
All right. So we're building someone from a forest, or that will be encountered in a forest, that if things go poorly could harm the players. So that means I need to. So then now let's figure out what we want to do. So, do we want them to be somebody with hit points that they can kill that could hurt them like that, or do we want them to have implications in gameplay that will hurt the party? Sort of indirect power, if you will.
I kind of like the indirect power idea. What do you mean by that?
Well, so I'll give you an example from my campaign. So, I think last week I had referenced connotation and how things are said, right? Coming from an NPC, lovingly referred to by his last name of Boundersheen. He's one of the head families in the city of Tavelstad, thus has a seat on their council, and isn't directly related to the story arc. He's not the villain of the piece, right? But he is a person that has power and influence to hinder the players for his own motivations. Is their adversary, but is not the enemy they're fighting against, right? So they interact with him, and he has his own little subplots that are technically red herrings for the main thing that's going on, but is the kind of character that they can't. Well, they could just kill him because he's just a fat noble guy, a fat wealthy guy. They could stab him, they could murder him in half a second. I wouldn't even bother rolling initiative. But if they do that, the consequences will be a major problem for them. They can't just kill him, so they have to deal with him in some way, shape, or form. And then the gameplay around him is, do you try to get on his good side? Do you avoid him? Do you try to intimidate him? How do you deal with that character? It creates a non-combat challenge to the game. So if you want a character that can hurt them, but not in a stat rolling way, he's going to have some influence on where they're going or what they're doing. So he's from the forest. They're in the forest. Tell me about what they're doing in the forest.
It's funny. It's funny because I see here on Facebook, Todd said a neutral good troll, and it's funny because they just passed through an area where there are a whole bunch of evil trolls. So that's already kind of that would be kind of a neat little encounter for them to meet this good troll and see how they might encounter it, because I hadn't even thought of that as one of the encounters in that area.
All right.
It's kind of into something with all these different people throwing stuff.
All right. So here's the thing. So let's roll with that, chat. Thank you very much. So is the character is going to be a troll, but this is a troll that we're working on building somebody who can hurt them in a way that isn't combat. So what are they going to do? Like, why are they in the forest? What are they going to do?
Well, they're actually headed. They were actually in pursuit, because when you mentioned before about important NPC or not, they're in pursuit of an important baddie that went across this area. So they're following that person.
All right, and that's somebody they're going to fight with?
Well, they have to go. They're going through an adventure, and they're going to be at the end of that next, cave adventure kind of thing.
Okay, right. So they are chasing a combatant to somebody they're going to fight with, right?
Right. So having this other encounter along the way as kind of something, instead of just fighting evil trolls all the way across the wasteland, they've got to get across, kind of thing.
Okay, so could he help them in some way, or do you want that to not be possible? He's either neutral or a hindrance.
No, I think he could help them in some way. Now that we're getting there.
All right, so really quick, let me throw some things out there. So we have a troll. Now, you want him to not be the normal evil, villainous, hungry kind of thing. Do you have a reason why he's different than the other trolls they might have to fight? Why would that be?
I don't know. I at some point, I don't know, I guess last year we were talking about different types of trolls, and I designed a contrary troll. Okay. And I was messing with Photoshop, and I found this picture of a troll, and then I found a picture of a meadow, and I put all wildflowers in his hair, and I just thought it'd be kind of a neat concept where this troll is just sort of embracing the spring and wildflowers and just sort of being happy instead of being,
malicious. So a troll that was raised well.
Yeah, the whole concept is kind of neat. It's more of a major. We're kind of turning it into a major character. The more I talk about it.
All right, okay, so let's run through some stuff for your. Is it a homebrew setting, or are you playing in an established campaign world?
Yeah, it's a homebrew setting.
All right. So, is there anything that you have in the pipeline that may have been hinted at in your game, or that you want to introduce, that might tie into why this troll loves wildflowers and is a good guy?
Well, the forest has gone shady evil.
Okay.
I don't want this.
Yeah, you don't give away too much, but
give it too much. So, I guess that's another reason why I'm kind of intrigued by the idea of having the neutral control, because I think I've placed a lot of baddies around.
Okay.
I tend to place the baddies around and not have enough goodies. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I even wonder if he could join the party. I don't think I've ever played a troll as an NPC with a group. Might be an
Well,
interesting.
all right. Well, let's see. I don't know what the. I do not know the troll stats off the top of my head. Let's take a look and see how smart trolls are. Not that you can't just change this, but try to inform our decision here. So let's go. I typed in troll chart. Jesus. I'm not so good at the internet. Troll D&D 5e stats. That's what I want to see. I want to see stats, not pictures. Thank you very much.
You're so funny.
Not very good. Let me look.
I bet you I can beat you.
I found it already.
All right.
7. Okay, so they can talk. Not very smart. Well,
yeah,
okay.
but that's what I mean. I mean that just because you're not very. I mean, it's more of like, again, this is like goals and what their personality is, as opposed to what their. I don't know. I think I like where we've gotten to for this non-player character to kind of join.
Well, let's see. So some of the things the chat threw out there. So maybe the troll was found as a small troll by druids. Do you have any groups in the area that you would like to introduce to the players?
Oh, you know what? There is actually an enclave of elves they have not discovered yet.
Okay.
When I talk about the different locations in the sandbox, so that would help connect them back to that area they haven't discovered yet. I could say that maybe the wood elves in the area, had taken him under their wing for a while.
Ooh, how about this? I have an idea. So it's always cool to have stories. Now you want to establish that you can have good trolls, and not every monster is an evil monster. That's a thing you're working on, right? Yeah,
right.
Okay.
Right. Well, and like I said, I have a lot of baddies already all placed around. I don't feel like I placed any good, any even a buff. Call it a buff if you want, I guess.
So do you want to have the troll enhanced in some way by the elves that makes him able to control his trolly nature?
I don't know. I don't know. Could be. He could be.
All right. Well, here's the thing. So we were talking about history, right? Stealing from history. We got to find a reason. You want to find a reason why the troll is good. You want to have a good story behind it. A reason why the elves, if they're connected, would have helped him. How about this? And it's a bit of multifaceted world building. You're going to create. So we're going to create this. If you like the idea, it will create a bit of lore about elven society and superstition. It will establish some of the powers the elves have beyond just what's written, in the book or whatever.
Right.
And you don't, and then it allows you to kind of cover the, it's the nature of trolls. Elves are in their forest. They're beset upon by something horrible, right? They end up having an elven child get not lost, but maybe lost or dropped in the swirling chaos of whatever this battle was, right? When they realize the child's missing, the elves go back and they find, and I'm stealing this from history, they find the child safe because a small troll had killed and eaten several poisonous snakes that would have gotten to the child, or wolves, whatever you want it to be, and thus satisfied in its hunger, it didn't eat the baby. The elves, believing that to take the life of one who has saved a life close to you is a grave sin or an ill omen or bad luck, you can work that out, resolve that they must then take in this troll to repay it the debt of saving their child, unintentional or otherwise. And then if you want to establish that the elves have powers that are beyond what is commonly known, maybe they're druids or some science. I see experiment in here. Some science they have, or through magic, they do something to provide the troll a means to overcome its base nature.
Right.
right? So now you have a troll. If you like this idea, you have a troll who is going to act in an elven manner, the flowers in the hair, dancing around a meadow, if you will.
Right, exactly, exactly.
And be able to communicate to the party in a way they don't expect, right? And just think of them tying themselves in knots, trying to figure out what to do. Like, why is it there's a troll who speaks trolly elvish, has flowers in its hair, has itself garbed in like elven clothing, and is there an elf in your party?
Yeah. There's
so we'll talk to the elf as if they are both elves,
right?
Like to try to be his buddy.
Well, and it's neat too because, like I said, they've been going through this slog of fighting all these evil trolls. You know, and it's going to be a big switch up for them. Now, I want to stop for a second.
Yeah.
So we started, and I know you said you were going to go through this tonight, and I've been the guinea pig, and I'm just kind of spitting stuff at you. Is this like a list you're working from, or are you just kind of going stream of consciousness as we?
Yeah, no, it's this is kind of a stream of consciousness thing. It's the same method that I just use when I do stuff. So I'll say, okay, what do I need? All right, well, I need to have this. All right, well, what does this do? Okay, why does it do that? Okay, what's its does it have history? Can I use this to either deliver lore, and I kind of run through this list to create it, and then as I'm going, usually things hit me, a little idea will hit me. So today the chat gets to be my brain because that's one of the things that was in there. Maybe it's druids. They took him in. They used. They exposed him to teaching. They experimented to get him to not be a monster. All good ideas.
Right,
but those are the why, right?
Right. So really you're kind of doing two things. We're following a stream of consciousness for those of you that are kind of following the creativity, but we're also following, I guess, what they call the reporter W's.
Right.
The who, what, where, why, when, and the how.
How's an H? But good job.
Yeah, that's what they're called. They call them the W's. And
I actually make that. That's one of the bad jokes I make during my professional life. I'm like, I have all the W questions answered. What happened, when it happened, who was involved, how it happened. That's an H on W, by the way. Sneak that in there on people, and they look at me silly. So, yeah, but that's kind of the process. So this is to go back to what we were doing with last week, and then with the shit I forgot. Yeah. Now this thing is so what we're doing is we're creating this that's different, but we're working through the logic of it. So why it makes sense.
Right. Now the other thing I think combination in there kind of, we talk about stream of consciousness and we talk about the W's. When you talk about creativity, the other thing I always think about, I call it the Oreo or the Reese's theory. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
Hit me up.
Okay, so Reese's peanut butter cup, right?
I am intimately familiar with them.
Okay. So do you know how many other things there are that are Reese's? Like, they're Reese's Pieces, right?
Yeah.
And so you think about how many variations on a theme you can make, and you sort of do that with trolls now. So we're sort of at the same point where we're saying, okay, take the troll, put in the wildflowers, have it sing Joni Mitchell.
Well, here's the thing. So let's go back a step, though. So, like I had said, one of the things that is in my kind of rundown is, do I want to use this character to introduce some unique bit of lore about the world? So this is my point that I would throw out to you. Like I said, if we go the route that the trolls are hideous and evil, and this one is just unique, you get to deliver some stuff about what?
Sorry. Somebody said it's starting to sound like My Fair Lady.
Put him in a dress? I like it.
I love it.
So here's the thing. So this is one of the choices that you can make as to show, don't tell. It's a good writing tip. Obviously, you don't want to just lore dump on people with exposition. I have that problem. You want to have it be delivered so they can learn it through, like I said, a character or an event or whatever. Mm-hmm. So do you want there to be good trolls in your world as a thing, or this one to be unique?
I think I want this one to be unique as we
Okay.
just created it tonight. I don't think it, like I said, the whole area had been evil trolls, and
Yeah.
it's kind of becoming a slog where this is a nice switch up.
All right.
But I don't want it to be a common
Okay.
occurrence.
Yeah, see, I have one of the things in my homebrew, and I won't spoil it in case you ever get to experience my super awesome campaign. Is I advanced in my understanding of the game and different things, so I realized that I was kind of okay with as long as there's a reason for it, with having some of the monster races not be monstrous. Things like orcs and bugbears in particular. So. It hasn't really been. It's come up in a couple it came up in the last campaign. It hasn't come up in the current one, but there's a reason for it. That I worked out. Same kind of process as this, and people have had the experience, but not the backstory yet, because they weren't like super into figuring it out. So I didn't push the issue, but it's there. So, but we're not worrying about that. We have Troll through some random circumstance saves a child, and thus the elves are indebted to this trolling to repay that debt. Do you like that setup for it?
Yeah, I think it works very well.
All right. Do you know where I stole that from in history? The idea of the troll killing deadly asps.
I can't say I'm getting the reference. It's not clicking right now.
Because I changed it a little bit again. Good history. If you're going to steal from history, just change things a little bit. Do you know the story of Hera trying to murder Hercules?
Oh yeah.
He sent the poisonous snakes into the crib and he strangled them.
Right.
So here's the thing: I took that idea and I shifted a few parts. The troll strangles the asps, and they weren't sent to kill him. They were just there and they were going to kill the child. So it saved them. Now. You can leave open, and these are always interesting. This is if you want to get your players to talk about this. A good little RP thing is, if they eventually learn the whole story, then they can ask the question. Well, is it just whatever, Todd? Thank you for correcting me. Snakes are venomous, not poisonous. You are correct. This is what I'm going to get. I'm going to get harassed. Whatever. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening. But no, you can have that conversation of, is it just random chance? Words are important. Is it just random chance, or is there something more to it? Did it want to protect the baby? Did it know it was different? Maybe trolls really aren't evil. Maybe it is their environment, because this one did it when he was young. An adult troll wouldn't have done that. It would have ate everything.
Right.
So you create that conversation. Okay, so we have a trolls saved an elven child's life, and as repayment was taken in and helped, aided, enhanced. You can work that out if it becomes relevant. Or again, as a way to world build, you can put the lore in there that maybe elven druids have the power to enhance the intellect of beasts and animals. Maybe they can, share. Like, I think there's a spell called Awakening, right?
Right. Well, I'm even wondering if maybe it's more of a mystery, because like I was saying, I placed too many baddies. Maybe it was just like nature itself gave the elves some...
Helped them out?
Yeah,
Could be.
Maybe some kind of gem or crystal they used gave them the power to transform this troll or something. Because there was so much evil that they were able to create some kind of good entity. Wow, I can't believe where we've gotten to. This has been pretty cool. Yeah. This was fun. I like this.
Yeah, no, it's I like So it's the that's the way it works. Like I told you with
I think the big thing is really though is have two people so you can really do this bouncing.
Yeah, well, no, that certainly helps, which is why having communities like Dungeon Studios on Discord,
right,
or a Facebook page, is a good resource, because you can hop in there and throw this shit out there. I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups where people will put out questions about things. And there was one, and I tell you right now, I think we should steal this for Dungeon Studios. They actually, I have a Discord group that I'm in that was set up by somebody who wanted to have a resource where old, cranky, mean, evil, murder DMs like me can talk to the youngins and help them out with things. And I loved doing that. And I did the same exact exercise with them. The girl was trying to figure out how to build a magic item for the game. I'm like, well, here, how about this? And then all the things I've applied, I'm saying now I apply there. I'm like, hey, you know what? Don't give up free content. Can you maybe they have to figure out how it was made, or they have to do something with it, or it's got a backstory, something else you can do for it.
Right.
So we have your good troll saved by the elves because it did something unexpected, so they felt indebted. Gives you a little bit of elf culture that you can work in there. You can figure out if it's science or magic or whatever.
No, and I like the idea that nature brought something to the elves to bring about this change to the troll too, because the characters are helping clear the evil out of the forest, and this entity now can kind of join them along the way.
Well, hey, let's take. Yeah, no, I like it. So let's take a little sidebar from this, right? So one of the things that I harp on is not giving up free content, right? So how about this? So maybe there are differing opinions amongst the elves about what happened, and you can have a little subplot where this troll, if the players wanted to go down this path, where there's some contention, there's some conflict between the elves, because there are those that think they had satisfied this superstition by just not killing it. Well, we were paid enough, we didn't kill the monster. Where the druids, like you said, said, well, no, nature allowed this to happen for a reason. It put it in our path so we could understand the difference of their nature, and we're not going to refuse the gift nature has given us. Right? So you can do a couple of things. You can further build up the druids and what they believe and how they act. You can build up this other faction of elves. You can have a conflict built right in there, because if the players find this character and they like him, and he helps them out, maybe he comes up again, but now he's at risk. Maybe the druid.
I was saying it's a perfect idea, because now he goes with them to go find this baddie. But like I said, they hadn't been to the elf bit in the sandbox. Then when they get there, I now have a good conflict set up when they arrive there.
So he agrees to help them. Maybe. Okay. So again, we're working on motivation. So he agrees to help them, and obviously again, you want to ask the question. Does it make sense? He agrees to help them because he was helped by the elves. He knows that some elves don't like him, but the ones that took him in and raised him helped him out. Now and they talked about how nature, the will of the wood put you in a place to save this babe. And the will of the wood, and then the troll can actually quote this elvish druid lore. My father, however your troll's going to speak. The will of the wood had me save the baby, and now the wood and they saved me. So now I owe a debt to help someone else out because they helped me out. So the will of the wood says I help you.
Oh, I just got another weird idea.
Hit me. What do you got?
What if the whole thing was just a joke from a copper dragon? Copper dragon just puts this troll with these elves. The whole thing is a big joke. The elves think it's nature. But the troll still turns out good, right? It's kind of interesting.
Well, I like your idea. Here's what I would ask you. A couple of questions. Does the theme of your game run more towards the humorous, where this being a practical joke that went well would be a kind of thing that your players would enjoy and wouldn't kind of break up the world that you're in?
I think it would play pretty well.
Okay, because you know what you could do is, if you wanted to play it serious and again free content, give you another NPC to develop and another story to go to. Maybe it's not a joke. Maybe the copper dragon, because they talk to people and they're very social, has met humans who discuss nurture versus nature. I see that in the chat.
Right.
So he says. So he's running his own experiment where
he puts the troll
there to do that, to see what happens.
Oh gosh! And now I'm thinking the troll could even be it could be like Gilligan. It could be. It's like a goofball.
Well, I think so the person, so you know what you can do is, and this is always fun to do. And actually, it's one of the twists that I won't say because people from the studio are listening. It's a thing I have worked into some stuff I've written where a character that something happens unexpectedly with the character. You could have this twist in there where he seems like a goofball, right? And they let him go along or whatever. Yeah. But then when it comes time to fight, like he flips shit and slaughters things like a troll would. Right, and they're like, and they go like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, he's still a troll.
Yeah. So like I said, you have this conflict because maybe he helps them, they come back, and then when they arrive, he finds out that his elven father has passed away while he was gone, and now that means that the person protecting him isn't there. So the other faction that wants him gone starts to conspire to get rid of him, and the party who he's helped and are now friends with him are now there, the will of the wood, to be there to save him from the elves that want him gone. And then you have the Copper Dragon arc that you can work in there. It's either a practical joke, which, like, I imagine I'm running into the Copper Dragon, and he's like, and he's just cracking up, holding the sides, and then he's like, "Oh, he really helped you? Really? That worked? Exactly. Oh, it's way better than I thought it was going to go." It gives you. So now we have another whole encounter built up with another NPC you're going to develop that's connected to this, and now you have a personality. This dragon's a prankster, and he thought it'd be funny to mess with the elves and see what he could do with the trolls.
Yeah, I always wanted to do I've always played the evil dragon. I've done evil dragons. I've never done the prankster dragon, so I'm kind of intrigued to do that. Okay.
So we, again, elven conflict, we have a good dragon, we have the troll. So we've already kind of covered why the troll would help the party, because he's been told since he was young that the will of the wood is that we helped you, and so he thinks this is the woods telling him what to do, even though
he needs to help these players because those players have been charged with saving the wood.
There you go.
Getting the old forest back.
Perfect. That works. That loops around. So the positive of this is they may be paranoid. They don't take him at face value. They don't trust him. They could offend him in a minor way and lose him as an ally. As the troll goes running off crying that he doesn't understand why they're being so mean. So they feel bad about being a jerk to the troll.
I might have to name him Freddie Mercury.
Hey, you know what though? I got a trick for that you can have your own super inside joke with his DM. I'll get to that in a second with the name. So he helps them if they treat him like a person, and you do still get to have that tension when he goes all troll on something, because then they're gonna be like, okay, is he gonna do it to us? Right. But you get to have that interaction. You get a neat little role playing encounter out of it at the very least. So how it harms them? If they harm the troll, they won't get his help, but maybe they make an enemy of the dragon down the road. They make an enemy out of the druids potentially, or if you wanted to play it, and again, this is a world building and lore thing for you to work out of this. Maybe the woods itself is angry because it was trying to rehabilitate this troll. It really was the will of the woods.
It really was the will of the woods. Yeah, it wasn't a joke. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they go murder hobo on it, which is funny because they're hard to kill. Obviously, I don't know what level your party is, but
they're all mixed. I had people come in and out of that campaign.
Gotcha. Okay, so I mean, maybe killing a troll is not a big deal for them, but it's certainly a weird one. So if they kill it, they lose an ally, and they make enemies they don't even know about, and so that will hinder them in an indirect way. So that's the indirect power part of it. That killing him he's not the risk. Killing him messes up other things that they're doing, and they don't see that consequence. Which goes to another DM, like day one DM tip, thrown out, or just a DM tip. Good morning,
God,
everybody.
It's late. That voice, man.
I know I'm falling apart today. I'm hitting less syllables than usual.
No, you said
Jesus.
You forgot your coffee.
I know. I just had the coffee. That's what it is, and it hasn't kicked in yet. So they have a way to teach your players a lesson. So if you were trying to rehabilitate murder hobos, get people to engage in the story more, or as we talked about before, have consequences for doing things that are out of character or break the immersion of the game, or what I like to teach is that disrespect the world that you're building. Todd's hassling me. That's fine, I accept it. But you could teach this lesson. They kill it, they realize there were consequences for killing it, and then they have to learn that, this is, there are consequences to these actions. It does matter. The world is real. It exists. The world doesn't exist for you. It exists in spite of you.
Absolutely.
So you can help with that.
Absolutely.
All right. So I think we got a pretty good run on this guy. I like it.
No,
so,
that was fun. That was fun to do. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. So this thing. So I've done this. This is how I came up with the the explanations for werewolves in my campaign. It's how I came up with why some of the races are in the game that I didn't have in originally. Yeah, it's a great way to do it. And even if you're by yourself, like I said, if you're by yourself, you can do what I talked about earlier. You can write this stuff down, and I'm going to read through it again in a second. And I'm going to see if there's anywhere where something else might make sense, either make more sense or where something doesn't make sense. But let's talk quickly about naming the character. So you said you wanted to name him Freddie Mercury. One of the things that I like to do is I like to find a language, a culture that matches, and then use that language to come up with the names, so that the elves sound the same, the dwarves sound the same, and so when you hear a name, and even with humans, when you hear a name, you immediately can go, oh, that person's from here because their name sounds like this, right?
Right. Yeah.
So one of the tricks I do, and I hate to give this away to my players, but occasionally I will hide secrets about the character or little inside jokes in the name, because I take it and I try to translate it into something in a different language, right? So if you want to call him Freddie Mercury, but not give it away, maybe you find a name that fits with how you name your elves.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, because in my Raven Brew, in the Sea of Sorrows, the crew ended up getting on board this ship, and on each level of the ship, there's actually one chamber that's organs, like the ship is alive. So it's a living ship, and I ended up using the Catalan translation of living ship, which is, I think, Velez-vous or something, and that's the name of the ship, is the Velez-vous.
No, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So
change the language up, and I do that all the time.
Yeah, so if you have an idea of what real world language sounds like your elves, you could always find some way to either directly translate Freddie Mercury, or find terms like queen, and so what should we say, queen, singer, star, and then translate those and use those to name them.
Quicksilver instead of Mercury.
Yeah, there you go.
It could be Frederica Quicksilver.
Yes, I like it.
You like that?
Yeah, and then you get the joke. Maybe they get the reference. Maybe they don't.
Right.
I think the first example, or the oldest example of that I can think of, was reading about someone's campaign world, and it was set in the town of Emerson on Lake Palmer.
Oh my gosh, I get it. Yeah. I'm not sure everyone gets that reference.
No, there's an old 70s band called Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and that's what they named the town on Lake Palmer.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, no, that's a very clever way to do it. All right, so I'm going to read through this and see if it passes the logic test. So we're going to encounter a troll, but not an evil troll, a good troll, who, through the manipulations of a copper dragon experimenting and playing a prank, had the troll save an elven child that was left behind after his parents were attacked by trolls in the forest, and they didn't realize that they had lost the baby in the chaos. When they went back, they found that the troll had killed things that would have hurt the child, meaning that per elven custom, they owed a life debt to the troll and couldn't just kill it because it saved their child. They owed it. So split on what to do if you want to go with the conflict angle. The druids advised that the troll should be taken in and treated as a guest, and they also claimed it may have been the will of the wood that this troll save the child and be found and taken in by the elves. So they, through their magic or some other means, helped the troll integrate into elven society to avoid its trollish nature. Then this caused some conflicts amongst the elves, but the druids were steadfast because they didn't want to violate tradition, and as the troll grew, they learned that he really could be good. Just a little bit of change is good. Now, there's some debate if it's nurture or nature, or if it was just the magic. But either way, Freddie Mercury the Troll is now embracing his best elven life.
Frederica Quicksilver.
Frederica Quicksilver. Right, is embracing his best life, and the party's going to run into him in a troll-infested wood with a crown of flowers in his hair, singing elven tunes in a trollish voice, while happily dancing around the growing blooms in here. If the party harms him, it will create enemies for them and potentially anger the spirit of the woods itself, because the troll will believe that it's the will of the woods that he now repays the debt he has to the universe to help these people in saving the forest. If they do not harm him, though, he becomes a powerful ally and sets up their involvement in the elven conflict over his existence, and gives them an in when they have the hilarious encounter with the Copper Dragon, who reveals that he had the experiment going the whole time. But maybe, just maybe, the Copper Dragon is the will of the woods. Maybe that's one of the Copper Dragon's legendary names. He manipulates events in the forest and tells people and lets people think it's the will of the woods when it's really the will of the Copper Dragon. So is there anywhere in any of that where you said, that really? Or that's why that happened? Wouldn't this be better? Or shouldn't it be that? Is there anywhere in that where you found a spot where you would think something should be changed, it doesn't make sense to you, or it could be better some other way?
No, it's really playing very well, and kind of getting close to my spoilers. I
gotcha. And now I'm sure you can already think of how the troll is going to act, how he's going to sound. We have built you an NPC. It took us little under an hour shooting the ideas back and forth. You could have done this by yourself just by running through the same process, but then stopping and going, okay, so does that make sense? How could this work? You could do all the questions by yourself, but it's great when you have other people. Like I said, join.
It's really enjoyable with other people. I find other than doing it yourself, it really, really is.
Yeah, and let's see, what do we? Yeah, what do we?
We're going to do this tonight. I was very excited.
Yeah. So what do we come up with here? We came up with 2 story arcs, multiple NPCs, a bit of lore for your world. With the elven superstition, some factions you may not have really put much thought into, but now you have the groundwork for.
Yeah, and then some pull some different areas of the sandbox.
Yep, and you get to put in there something that flips on its head what the players are expecting, to give them things to talk about with a wild character who can be a boon to them, a bane to them, and allows you, if he helps, actually it does allow you to shift around your encounters and everything as well, because maybe obviously there's going to be different reactions based on the troll. Maybe the party can do things tougher than they thought they could do because the troll's helping them. You do have to watch out to make sure the troll doesn't become the Skyrim NPC that you throw in a dungeon, close the door, and it just kills everything for you. You don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
And who knows? Maybe you'll get to have an epic Terminator moment where the troll, to save everyone else, lowers itself into the vat of acid and gives them the thumbs up on the way down.
That would be cool too.
Again, another reference that no one's going to get if you're under like 30. Look, that's it. That's all. And here's everything we did right there, just from talking about it, saying it out loud, talking back and forth, and writing it down. I covered all the stuff that we've talked about in the last several episodes. I've covered some day one DM tips. I've gone over that, and it was a good time. And just look at all of that content you have. Like that RP encounter might be a whole session.
Oh yeah.
You get a whole session out of that. And then you have other sessions built in, going to the elves, going to the Copper Dragon, going wherever else they're going to go, kind of thing. And you have a new story lead. The Will of the Woods might be a thing. Maybe you weren't planning on that, that as a concept, but now maybe that'll play a major role in the story.
No, absolutely.
So, that, everybody, was the weekly world build. I hope you all had a good time with that. Doc, you said you had a good time. I love that.
I love doing that all the time.
Yeah, look, that's one of the reasons that we want you guys to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep having conversations like this. We can bring you this kind of content. And we can provide...
We do that kind of stuff at Dungeon Studios all the time. You want to pop in the DC and just talk it out like we just did. That's what we do. We do it with the artists too. We do an art for modules and all kinds of stuff. It's great.
Yeah, we provide that for you guys. We do the world building stuff. If you're picking up our content, if you want to join us on the server, you can help contribute to these kind of things. But like I said, these are the kind of conversations I like to have between games, after sessions, hanging out at the coffee shop with other DMs and people that have become my friends from being in my game. And it's a great exercise. And I've helped them run games. We've done the same kind of thing, and they've helped me build stuff into my world that I think is wonderful. So
check us out on Patreon. Check us out on Patreon. I know we're also popping up on TikTok now. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Follow us, support us wherever you can. We really, really appreciate it if you can do that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody like, share, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, join us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Check out our videos on YouTube. We post them sometime after we record them. It takes me a hot minute to edit them because I'm slow and busy. We have a lot of good stuff out there. So I think we're down to the things that I hate.
Yeah, we're already at the things you hate. So what do you hate?
Yes.
What do you hate?
I
hate everything.
I hate everything. Well, unfortunately, really quick, I'm going to go back. Apologies for the super juicy crunch discussion. But most of my notes there were for things I'm going to talk about on our special upcoming episode on Saturday with the guys from Mike and Jeremy Steal Your Podcast. Everything I have on here is 1,000% part of my rant against Wizards of the Coast. So give me a second to kind of call out the good stuff.
I also wanted to say I'm trying to set up with Jungar from Goblins and Warlocks. I've been reaching out to different people from Discord and Facebook to come on as guest stars, and we may have them the following week.
Oh, nice.
So trying to coordinate that date for us. They run a lot of free games for people, and just to talk to somebody who's actually doing that and how it runs and everything, I thought would be kind of cool. But if you're out there, and I know on our Facebook page, if you want to promote yourself, come on the show with us, reach out to us. Reach out to any of us here, Dr.Pletorius, Merwin, or Josh, our creator at Dungeon Studios, and we'll try to get you on. We're about the game. You're about the game. We're about to share it. How about that?
I like it. Well, so the things I hate right now, this moment, we're gonna categorize it as people. I was supposed to have a wonderful, relaxing, break between holidays, many days off, usually low key with what I do for a living. And people had to get stupid right around the holidays. I don't understand it. I do not understand it. I don't. I had to deal with large scale thefts. I had to deal with the blizzard in Buffalo and people doing stupid things for that, and everything in between. It's been wonderful. It's been tiring. So that's what I hate today. I hate people, especially you in the chat making fun of me and picking on me the whole time. I see what's up. But don't worry, I know where Todd's due up for a playtest in my game. I don't think it's going to go very well for him.
I was going to say, you've been talking about evil DM stuff.
Yes, evil DM stuff. That is, that's what I'll do. I'll switch it really quick. The thing that I hate the most, I do hate DMing and people who DM and use it as a tool to win against their players, to mistreat people. And make them miserable, that kind of, we die because I say so kind of shit like that. I hate that shit. That bothers me. And I think that is all I can say about that. So let's move on to the end of the show, our amazing outro, our final shameless plug. Like we said, like, share, and subscribe. Check us out and all these things. We do have some stuff in the pipe besides Fables of the Forgotten. Some ideas I was kicking around about some shorter and more easily accessible content for the game going forward, so more people can see us, interact with us, and see what we do here, and come join us on the channel. So, well, with that being said, I thank you for being with us tonight. Again, next week we have a special Saturday session scheduled because we're bringing in a pair of guests from another podcast. Mike and Jeremy Steal Your Podcast. Those guys.
Yeah, definitely.
I believe we'll be live streaming on Saturday. I think we talked about getting together at 1. We probably will be able to stream by 2, I think.
Yeah. I think we're supposed to.
We'll make it a point to put out on the socials when we plan to go live. But don't worry, for those of you that that like to listen to us, our Monday Night Monsters, we will, if we can figure out how to do it, be rebroadcasting the Saturday show on Monday night in the same time slot. I hope. I don't know that we're that smart. We're gonna try. I think maybe I can just. I think maybe I can. I think. Could I just throw it in Streamlabs and hit play?
I think you can do it. I think
I think that would work. I just hit go live and have it play a replay screen, right? I'll talk to Josh about that. That might be the easiest way to do it.
We do it like Mystery Science Theater and listen to ourselves.
Oh God, no! I can't. That's something I was talking. I was talking to Mike from the podcast about that. I have a real hard time listening to myself talk, mostly because I miss syllables and I'm a mushmouth. Thank you for pointing it out in the chat. So I have a real hard time with
yourself. That. You could the shit you could hate could be yourself.
Oh well, no, I certainly do. And as my wife points out, I hate all of my hobbies. So, but like you said, we're going to have those guys on our podcast Saturday. We're going to do an episode with them. What we're going to be doing is we're going to go through our top 10 list. Or sorry, not top 10. Oh, Jesus, God, it's late. We're going to go through our past 11 episodes, pull out the highlights there, and give those guys a chance to chime in on the topics that we've covered in the first 11 weeks. See what they think. We're going to prep them so that if they manage to pull off the heist and steal our podcast, they'll be able to do it justice. So, anyways, Internet, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. And as always, we appreciate you. So remember, we play role-playing games because they are limitless. So why listen to conversations that are any different?
Hey, and no matter how you start out, you always start out odd. But with effort and creativity, you'll always roll initiative with a prime advantage. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Good night, Internet. Have a good time. Thanks for watching.